There we go. We are now live. Welcome to everybody who was waiting patiently for this to start. I think we got, yeah, almost 100 people waiting in the lobby here for it. So appreciate all of you guys showing up nice and early. Doing a little bit of a draft Q&A stream here with my wonderful co-host EJ Snyder. We have been grinding as hard as we possibly could over the last couple months to try to watch as many prospects as we can, to learn as many team needs as we can, to analyze free agency as much as we can to see how those shifted team needs. So hopefully, with all the work we've done over the last couple of months, we can have a really good Q&A today. And whatever questions you guys got, feel free to start firing away. And while I parse through those, EJ, buddy, how you doing? What are you drinking, if anything?
Oh, it's Friday, so I'm doing well. I'm super happy that we get to kick this off. I know that we've been teasing this for like weeks and just haven't found a time because I don't know, somebody was moving and it's draft season. But no, we finally got it done. I am drinking from Eugene, Oregon, Ninkasi Beers Northwest Lager. This is new for them. And it's really nice. It's a very drinkable, like 5%. I hesitate to say it, but a great summer beer. I know we're not in summer yet, but we've both had some nice days. Looks summery behind you already. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the surface of the sun behind me today in LA.
That's
we had
right,
rain
but
2 days ago. We're back to
no,
California.
I'm looking forward to this. We get a lot of questions through all kinds of platforms. I've been doing a bunch of radio. You've been everywhere. And you catch a lot of questions, and it's nice to be able to just say, hey, come to the live stream. We'll answer as many questions as we can, because there's a lot of questions out there. We're starting to get to that point of the process. Free agency slowing down a little bit. Pro days we only have 10 more days of pro days. I think Dane Brugler said today.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to having like all of the information, and that's both good and bad, because after that, then all the like paralysis by analysis stuff starts. But for now, we're still getting new information, and this is cool. This is fun. This is a great time of year. We love talking to all of you about it. So the floor is pretty much yours.
Well, what I accidentally did was a way too generous pour of Dorley's.
That'll be nice.
It came out quick on me. So thank God I live in a walkable area now, because I ain't driving the rest of the night.
No.
We did get our first question from chat, by the way, from Kel for $5. Thank you, Kel. EJ, it's been months now. How's full time on football been? What have you learned about it that you haven't expected?
Oh, it's a really good question. It's been great. First off, really enjoying it. It's not that much different than what I was doing. I just have a little more time to do other things, which is good. What have I learned that I didn't expect? How little time I was going to be able to focus on film, running the business as well. And that takes a lot of time, and getting all these great guests and setting them all up. I love all of them, and they are amazing to give their time to us. But it just takes a lot of work. They're very busy people. We're pretty busy people these days, and it's hard to get everybody together. And what else have I learned? How much having the support of all of the people in the network that I built up over the last 7-8 years means. I've been able to help other people get things done, and that feels really good. Yesterday, somebody was looking for somebody to talk about a free agent acquisition from another team, and I was like, hey, I was just on a podcast with a guy from that team. Hang on, let me reach out. Hey, would you come and talk about this free agent acquisition? He's like, yeah. And hey, you two talk. I got other things to do, but it feels good to be able to connect people like that. And people have supported us a ton, obviously. But it feels good to sort of reach back into the pool and be able to support other people. So it's been great. I really enjoy it. I find, like this morning, I texted Alex Katzen, went back and forth with Danny Kelly about comp for a running back. And I was talking to Brandon about a follow-up about one of the offensive linemen we talked about after we finished the other day. And I was like, this is what I was doing last year while I was working. So I just get to do it cleanly now, and then, put out little things about this.
Now you get to do it and get more nights of full sleep than you used
to.
So
some, but I don't know. You know better, because I sent you that document.
Oh, don't worry, man. Give it 3 years. You're going to be right back to all-nighters again.
Dude, so. I sent you that document the other night at what, 1:45, 1:55, like,
yeah,
inspirations.
I was sending like V2s of script to Chargers folks last week because I'm working on a project with them. And they
Yeah.
commented, they're like, "You sent us that at like after midnight." And I was like, "Is that when that was?"
Yeah, and I did 3 things after that, but I'm not gonna tell them
I was
that.
like,
Yeah.
"Man, that was like halfway through my workday."
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Somebody in the chat, I didn't see who asked it, but they said if you scouted anybody from the University of Delaware in the cycle because they work there. There is a linebacker that I want to get to eventually. I haven't got there yet. Johnny Buchanan, who's gotten some buzz. I don't know if you've watched him yet. DJ is like, or
No, I
EJ,
was
not
just thinking
DJ.
about Delaware, and I do this thing in my head where even though I grew up in the Northeast, I mix up like Delaware and Rhode Island and and smaller schools back there. And I was just like, Delaware. Did I? I don't think I have. No, not
Yeah,
yet.
the Northeast school with the blue uniform is only a couple of those. Yeah.
Right.
No, but Johnny Buchanan's on my list. They have another receiver as well that's draft eligible that's coming out. The name escapes me, but they got a couple dudes. Delaware's.
I mean, if you're Delaware and you got one dude, you're doing really well.
Yeah. Do you think Carter falls to 9? Thank you, Nick, for $2. I think it's possible, but I don't know if we're going to get any answers on the off-field stuff. Maybe till after the draft, right? I think as a backstop, I don't think he gets past Philly at 10. Although that being said, if he does get past Philly at 10, that means like there's serious shit going on. But I think he still goes in the top 10. I just don't know exactly where. And until we get some sort of answers or clarity on what is going on, it's tough to say. Who is at 9 this year? Bears. Oh yeah, it's the Bears. They traded back.
The Bears.
Would Poles do it?
He might. He said that they're going to wait until a little bit later this month. Take all the information they have and really kind of sit down and set Jalen Carter on their board based on that. He was at the pro day. From a pure talent standpoint, it's unlikely he gets that far, right? If they don't find something egregious. And just need to remember that some NFL teams are extremely comfortable with things that you and I might be very personally uncomfortable with. Not saying any of that stuff occurred. I don't have any knowledge of that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is whatever they find, some teams are going to go, yeah, that's fine. And some teams are going to go, oh no, we're not putting that guy on our team. Maybe, depending on what they find. As a player on tape, what he's done in the SEC the last 2 years, there's no way he gets out of the top 10. I honestly, with just his tape, there's no way he gets out of the top 5. With other factors, we can't know and we won't know. I think when it's all said and done, he probably goes I think he might go to Seattle.
That would be my gut instinct as well. But Seahawks fans are very quick to say that over the last couple of years, they've kind of gotten away from the old Seattle model of like, we'll take anything and coach it up. And now they kind of go for like really only high character guys.
Yeah, they keep saying that.
But at the same time, I'm like, Jalen Carter's not normal, and they're never going to pick in the top 5 again.
Yeah, and I hate talking about it like that because we don't know anything about his character. We don't know if it's good. We don't know if it's bad. We don't know what the details were. We weren't there. And neither was probably anybody else in the chat. We don't know what his character's like. All of his teammates have come out and again, not super reliable necessarily. But sometimes teammates are real quiet. They're like, oh, Jalen's a good guy. And you're like, it's not great. His teammates came out, especially at the combine. All of them got asked about him and said, look, if that's what you think about the guy, you don't know the guy. Yeah. And that's a good sign. Is it definitive in any way? No. Is it a good sign? It is. There might be nothing wrong with his character. We don't know. And it just judging off what we can see, again, we see 2/3. The other third is we don't get to see it. If teams dig in and they're comfortable with the guy, that guy's going real high.
As in not getting past Seattle if they're comfortable with it. So we'll see. I think that's just a long-winded way of saying we'll see. Holden for $2. Riley Moss and Josh Downs are going where? Josh Downs, I would say in the second round somewhere. I don't know how high or low because it depends on how many receivers go in the first round. We could have 2. We could have 4. You're seeing different projections. It just depends on how much people like Quentin Johnston and Jordan Addison. I think it's pretty safe to say that JSN and Zay Flowers are going top 31. I don't think anybody thinks they're not at this point. And Josh Downs is kind of in that second tier that could go somewhere high in the second round, or depending on if there's a run at tackle or a run at edge, like maybe he could slip down a little bit later in the second. Either way, I think he's going to second round. Riley Moss, somewhere around 3 to 4 is my guess. And I think it depends on honestly, teams have different thresholds in terms of like body type for corner. He's a pretty thin, kind of like spindly dude. And I think some teams kind of shy away from that body type at corner. Like he's got speed, he's got good hips, he's got good feet, but he is kind of small. And I think some teams might dock him for that a little bit, but I think like 3rd or 4th round seems pretty safe for him.
Yeah, I think Moss probably 4, not because of anything wrong with Riley Moss or very end of 3, like comp pick 3 range, just because there's so many different really good corners and really different flavors of corners, that he is just not going to be some team's cup of tea, but other teams are going to be very hot about guys that are taller, guys that are longer, guys that are whatever. He's a good player. He's a very solid player. And I think high 4th, low 3rd is right for him. Josh, I think around higher, basically sort of end of 2, you got to get by the size concern. And then you go, man, he's just a really good football player. And we've seen lots of diminutive receivers go in round 2. Some have worked out, some haven't, but teams get more comfortable down towards the end of round 2, just going, hey man, he's a really productive football player. So I would say end of round 2, very top of round 3 is probably my range for Josh Downs.
And also reminder, when it comes to Moss, he played at 190, but he's also 6'1". So it's a very thin frame. So I would like to see him add, get close to 200. That's all I want. Just get close to 200. Because if you got a 225 plus pound running back bouncing to the edge, like you got to be able to hold up. Alex Tracy for $10. Thank you, Alex. Really appreciate that. Is it crazy to have Michael Wilson as wide receiver 5 in this class? Thanks for the stream, celebrating the stream, and it being Friday with some Casa Azul. Is it Casa Azul or Clase Azul? I can't remember now. I don't have any bottles of them.
I would say Clase. I would say Casa Azul, but what do I know?
The Blue House.
Either way,
right?
I'm glad that somebody's getting to enjoy good tequila. Is it crazy to have Wilson as 5? It's high. And you have to be really comfortable with the medicals. He's missed a lot of time. And you have to be really comfortable with the medicals. I think more comfortable than any of us who are not doctors, who haven't looked at his knee directly, or his leg or whatever it is, could say. Talent wise, it's still a spicy take. There's a lot of good receivers out there. Wilson, I think if you had him closer to 10, I would blink less. I would still say, okay. But that's the range I start thinking that you think about him. And then it's just really bubbles and tiers. And we've talked about that. If he's in that tier or that bubble, the placement to us is less important. Was he 5? Was he 6? Was he 7? I don't know. 5, 6, and 7 were all together. 5 is probably high on both counts for me, because I'm not sure that he's going to be on the field. And if he's wide receiver 5, that means you're picking him in round 2. That's a little rich for me. Not on talent, just on availability. I got to have a guy I'm picking in round 2 on the field, making yards. And if he's not there, a lot of people are going to be asking me questions and eventually come for my job. So I'm going to wait a little bit on that.
My thing about Michael Wilson, and this is going to sound way more negative than it is, even taking the medical stuff out, I think he has a lot of tools. I think he does have speed. I think he's got good hands. He's obviously got size, good hips, quick feet. From a physical standpoint, we're good to go. The thing that everybody always brings up first with him is like, oh, he's a route runner. He's a good route runner, because they go back to the Senior Bowl one-on-ones, and he's throwing every kind of move. The thing that I really want people to understand is that you go to any all-star setting, the one-on-ones there are not real football. Like they're not real football. And a lot of the routes that you see in those one-on-ones have no bearing at all on how routes are actually run in the NFL. And, you can do all these fucking foot fires. Like I always use the Braxton Miller example, right? When he was at Senior Bowl and he's doing like quadruple moves to run a slant. It takes 3.5 seconds. And it's like, quarterback sacked, bro. Like, you got to go. Like in the NFL, you got to go. You don't have time for all the foot fire stuff. People post the touchdown that Bryce Ford Wheaton got against Press. I think it was against Pitt. And he's doing like a fucking salsa dance at the line of scrimmage. And it's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't translate. It doesn't matter. Any NFL corner would look at him and be like, are you fucking serious? Like, what are we doing right now? So I think a lot of the Senior Bowl reps just don't translate the way that people think they do. And when you actually watch the tape, like I watched him against Christian Gonzalez. Like I watched him against, like, there's actually a lot of good DBs in the Pac-12 this year. And I think that there are, in terms of practical route running skills that apply to a game, there are things that he needs to clean up. He is not all the way there as a route runner. And I think there's a big difference between running routes on air and running routes in a game. Like there was a whip route that he ran. Was it? I can't remember. It might've been the Oregon game. I can't remember which game it was. And it's just a whip route. And he ran it off the wrong foot. It's like one of the most basic routes you can run. He ran it off the wrong foot and it resulted in PBU. So I'm like, he's not all the way there like people think. He's got talent, he's got tools, he can get there, but he hasn't had a whole lot of reps because of his injury history, and I think that shows up in the fact that he's not all the way there. So I would entertain the thought starting in the third round because of the tools and because of what we can turn him into. But I think let's take him in the second round because we're getting an out of box number 2. Like I'm not ready for that yet personally. You got any expanding thoughts on that, EJ?
That's plenty of thoughts on Michael Wilson. I think Michael Wilson's a good player. He's a solid player. I think he's a player worth looking at. I think there are a lot of receivers I would look at before him in this draft for multiple different reasons. Again, multiple different roles, multiple physical things, skills, traits that I want my offense to fill out my wide receiver room that match my quarterback skills. He's, to me, a guy. He's a good guy. He is a guy in the sort of wide middle of this receiver class. So take that as you will.
Jared for $5. Where do you guys have JSN ranked? The film patrons have him at 8 between Parker Washington and Tank Dell. So some context on this. In my patron-only Discord for Film Room, they have been compiling, like, honestly, one of the most in-depth draft guides that I think anybody's putting out. Like, it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of prospects. And literally every night I go on and I look at their voice chat, there's 8 or 9 people in there all watching film together. And they've been putting together this draft guide for like 2 months. And it's all 22 of every single player. Like they are taking notes. They're grinding and grinding and grinding. They probably watch more people than me at this point, to be perfectly honest, because I've been moving and shit. In fact, I can guarantee you they've watched more people than me at this point. That being said, I'm very I need to go read the notes now because 8 is interesting to me. I'm not even like the biggest JSN guy, right? I think he does have some limitations. I think he is he is a slot warrior that will go in the first round and deserves to go in the first round, but I don't necessarily think he's like the do-it-all superstar that maybe some people are projecting him as. 8 is still low to me, though. And I say this as somebody who loves Parker Washington. I need to go look at who the top 6 are now. Because for me personally, I don't know if I would take 6 or 7 receivers ahead of JSN. And this is me, who's not even the biggest JSN supporter out there.
Yeah. 2 questions. Do you believe that there is a do-it-all everything superstar guy in this class?
The only one,
I don't think that's definitively yes.
The only one that I think maybe is Zay.
Right. And that's a maybe.
But that's the closest we're going to get.
Right. It's closest you're going to get, but it's a maybe. It's not a, oh yeah, there is, and it's blah, 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 or blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know that there is in this draft class. And that really muddies the water. It doesn't muddy it anywhere near enough for me to get JSN anywhere near out of the top 5. He's probably going to end up being my top receiver. And again, if he stays healthy, he was healthy most of his time at OSU, hurt a lot of last year. That's the most recent thing in people's minds, and rightfully so. The NFL is a "what have you done for me lately" league. He's checked every box in terms of production. And yes, he played mostly in the slot, but it's because of the guys that were with him. He literally had the top 2 candidates for offensive rookie of the year on his left and his right. So they didn't have to. He's like, well, he's crushing it in the slot. If he'd played on pretty much any other offense in the country, he would have played outside more. 100%.
Probably.
100%. Because he was almost exclusively in the slot, but it's because he had Olave and Wilson. And I mean, they've got Ibuka and then Marvin Harrison. Like, look, Brian Hartline's doing it right. We all know that. He's a guy that played in the slot a lot. He is not a slot guy, right? Yes, he can be very effective there. He can be just as effective outside. He has size, he has speed, he has body control, he has routes, he has strength, he has great hands. Like, he can be an outside guy. He's better than a lot of guys that play outside right now in the NFL. Like a bunch of them. So he's going to be right there he's either 1 or 2 for me. 8 behind Parker Washington.
And I love Parker Washington.
Get bent. Like, no. For me, that's like Parker Washington has some of the best hands in the draft. And it is sexy watching him catch football. Like, I put out a tweet about him like a month ago that, like, if you're not talking about Parker Washington, the best hands debate, you're having the wrong debate. Like, he needs to be in the conversation. If you say somebody else has better hands, I get it. That's fine. But Parker Washington, like Wilson, has things to work on in his game. It is not complete. And if you match his stuff against JSN stuff, there is no way I put Parker Washington in front of JSN.
I think JSN for me, when I started the process, I was like, he's Jarvis Landry, which is good. Like, Jarvis Landry's a great player, shitload of catches. And then I went back and I watched, I can't remember what game it was, but there was this one seam route that he ran. And I finally saw the burst that people were talking about, right? Where he just immediately stacked on a guy and obviously doesn't have the speed to pull away. I still don't believe he has the speed to pull away. No. But I saw the 10-yard split, right? And I was like, okay, I can get on board with that. Some people are still comparing him to Cooper Kupp, which I think is like the very, very top end.
That's if everything goes super duper well.
If everything goes amazing, he's Cooper Kupp. I think at minimum he's Jarvis Landry, which means we're probably settling somewhere in the middle, which is Keenan Allen. And I think if we're asking ourselves, would you take Keenan Allen going back with a first round pick? Yeah, I would.
Yeah, I just want to take Landry's name out of the conversation. You said that a bunch early in the process, and I left you to it because, again, neither one of us had done enough work, but I felt like that wasn't right. And I wasn't sure why I felt that. But I was like, it doesn't sit with me. You know me in comps. It didn't. And when we had the pod with Jordan, I got a chance to talk about that. And I think the Jarvis Landry comp is really good to the catch point because they both run great routes. They both have really good body control. They both have good hands. They both understand spacing and zone. There's that. After the catch, JSN is a whole different animal. He makes way more people miss than Jarvis Landry ever did. And that is a serious component of a lot of offenses. If you're running a yak-based offense, if you're the 49ers, right? Mm-hmm. Jarvis Landry doesn't do anything for you because he catches the ball and gets hit, right? He catches the ball and goes down.
So you thinking more like Debo?
What's that?
Are you thinking more like Debo then?
No, I'm just saying he provides so much more after the catch. Like, to the catch point, he and Landry look similar. After the catch point, he is wildly different than Landry to me. He provides so much more after the catch, and that elevates him, in my mind, over Landry as a prospect. Because just like you said with Keenan, if you're going back, would you take Landry with a first-round pick?
Ooh. I would. He set the record for most catches in his first 5 seasons. You know how many receivers flame out in the NFL?
I get it in terms of hit rate, but I really think that conversation sells JSN short for the second half after the catch point. Up until the catch point, there's a lot of similarity there, and that's a good thing. To your point, he caught a lot of balls in his first 5 years in the league, and that's great. JSN is Julian Edelman.
Bigger,
but in terms of play style, closer probably.
Yeah,
closer. Yeah,
for me. Yeah. Sean from the Go for $4.99. Thank you, Sean. What order would you guys put the OTs that fit the Bears scheme in? Paris Johnson way up there. If we're assuming we're going with the wide zone stuff again. Yeah, Paris Johnson's probably the best wide zone blocker. I would say
Broderick Jones is right up there.
Yeah, Broderick's got really good feet. Darnell has really the numbers, I think, like, I'm not saying he's a bad athlete. I was surprised by the combine numbers.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's fair to say. On tape, I didn't necessarily see the short area quickness, like unless when we're running outside zone, it's like we're just creating a cutback lane. But if we ever want to hit it front side, I don't necessarily think Darnell Wright's the guy for it. Doesn't mean he can't run block his ass off. Obviously he can, but it's just different. Like stylistically, it's a different thing. If we want to hit the front side on wide zones, Paris Johnson and Broderick Jones, and then Bergeron. I would say Bergeron is athletic enough that I would be down for that too. But you're not taking him at 9, obviously.
Yeah.
And they don't have 32 anymore. What number was the pick they got from Carolina again? It was like
60 something, 2 or 4, something like that.
Yeah, but so like Bergeron's not going to be a Bear, but I think
color scheme already works.
It's true. Skill set wise, though, he is somebody that fits that. And maybe if we're doing like a 3rd round flyer, we could teach Blake Freeland from BYU how to do it, because he's just a ball of clay. I would absolutely not put him on the field yet at all, but
yeah,
he's a freak, and I think that eventually we could teach him how to do it.
Yeah, Jalen Duncan fits in that category for me. He'll probably be gone before that 3rd round, but he is one of those guys that when he moves, holy cow, like on the pull, in the screen game, like that guy is just dangerous right now. And it's almost because he doesn't know what he's doing. He's just out athleting people. And he does that really well. He moves incredibly well for his size. He's not quite sure to do it with his hands. He just shows up and fights people, mauls them. But in terms of wide zone, screen game, whatever, like that is something you could build on and work from. He's got a lot of work to do in pass pro, but there's a lot to work with there, and he's very young as well. So I like Anton Richardson would be like the 3rd right there in that sort of category. If you're talking about guys with a lot of power that can move, I wouldn't put him above Paris or Broderick, and I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to put those two because they're similar but different. But I would say those two, probably Anton Richardson. They're again not at 9, but who knows? They might trade back. You never know. And there's a bunch of guys. The good news is there's a bunch of guys that fit the scheme that are going to be available at different levels throughout the first, say, 2.5 rounds.
George Duncan for $5. Clayton Tune looks like a 2nd round pick to me. Why am I wrong? So it's so funny. Clayton Tune does have his fans in the draft community. He does not have very many fans among NFL teams. And that doesn't mean that you're wrong. What it does mean is that I would be stunned if he goes in the 2nd round. I think in terms of 2nd round quarterbacks, the most likely like if I was going to put a bet on it, right? Like who after the first, after the top 4, top 4, like who's going in the 2nd round. My top bet would probably be DTR. My second bet would probably be, Hendon Hooker is actually my top bet. DTR would be my second bet, then probably Aiden O'Connell. And then I could look at Clayton Tune, but I don't think that 4 quarterbacks are going in the 2nd round. So I personally would be stunned if Tune somehow jumps Hooker, DTR, and Aiden O'Connell.
And Bagent, people like Bagent and McKee, like
do they?
I'm not saying us. I'm saying people, not me.
McKee, I could get.
I like Clayton Tune. Clayton Tune's one of my guys in this draft. I dig him. He's going to be available in the 5th or the 6th. Like
probably, yeah.
Just going to happen. Like he's going to be down there. Somebody's going to pick him up, and I think he has as much potential to do.
Oh no, EJ died. Well, we're never going to hear what he said. He'll come back in a second. Honestly, he probably had power outage or internet outage or something like that. No worries. But yeah, I will say this. I have heard from reliable folks that Tune does not. He does not have a second round projection for people in the NFL. Doesn't mean that he won't play to it in his career. Oh, he lives. There he is.
Well, that was fun. StreamYard just said something went wrong.
Wonderful.
Okay, we're back. No, so Clayton Tune, he's going to be available 5th or 6th, and I think he is a really good quarterback. I don't think you're wrong when your eyes show you that he's a good quarterback on the field, and you're thinking about round. Those two things don't necessarily mesh, right? You're not looking purely at skill and saying, well, that means he's a round 2 quarterback. He might be on skill. In terms of how he is viewed, he's going to be available later, but I think that's going to be a value. I think he's probably going to outperform over time some of those guys that get picked end of the 2nd, middle of the 3rd. I think he's going to go after those guys, and I think he's probably going to play better in time if he gets the chance. It's very difficult for quarterbacks who are picked anywhere after the very top of the 3rd to get a chance in the NFL. That their draft pedigree is a thing. If he gets that chance, I think he'll play pretty well. And I see the same things, I assume, on tape that you do that make me say he's better than that in terms of play production. But he's probably not going to get drafted better than that. And that's just a thing in the NFL draft. It's hard to explain, but that's the way that it's going to go.
Connor Sewell for 10
Connor.
pounds. Thank you, Connor. Appreciate that. Hi, guys. Loving the draft coverage as always. Raiders have been leaning into man corners in free agency with Long and Shelley. If we don't go Gonzalez at 7, who should we keep an eye out for later? Ooh, that's an interesting one. Throw a dart at the Illinois secondary, honestly, and you'll probably end up with somebody good. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, the question is when you say later,
how late are we talking?
Much later?
If it's second round, like Eli Ricks, probably.
Yeah, if we're talking about players farther on down, it's a question of how much farther on down, because there are many good ones. The good news is, Connor, there are lots of good corners. Again, zone, man, tall, short, slot, nickel, you name it. Great DB class. So you got options. I could see them going after, again, farther down, Darius Rush. Your guy, Tyreek Stevenson from Miami, although they didn't play a ton of man, he's got size to do it. Certainly has the disposition to do it. Caillou Blue Kelly would be pretty good in that scheme because he is a beefy dude and he's a playmaker. I reached out to Thomas Booker, who was his teammate at Stanford, and said, tell me about Caillou. You mentioned him last year. You said he was one of your guys coming out. Like, give me your elevator pitch for Caillou. And he said, playmaker. Just watch this game, playmaker, gets his hands on the ball. He's not going to be the fastest. He is big. Like, he is very solid. So I could see him being a fit.
Julius Brents is one I would bring up as well.
Oh, man. Did you see the clip I posted yesterday of him? I wasn't even watching him.
No.
I was watching offensive line, and Julius Brents like jumped off the screen like 3 times. I was watching K-State, Oklahoma, because I was watching both Oklahoma tackles. And plus, I mean, Gray's in there and Mims, and you go, Felix and then Brents are on the K-State side. So there's NFL guys everywhere. You throw a stick in that game, you're hitting a guy that's getting drafted. But Brent's, like, early on in the game, I was like, oh, I bet that's him, because I don't know what number he is, right? He's tall, but, I looked him up. I was like, yep, that's him. Later in the game, he hits a receiver hard enough, he knocks him backwards like 3 yards. Like, he just knocks him backwards. And it doesn't even look like a huge hit. And I said, okay, you got the time now. It's one of the differences with full-time stuff. Before, that stuff just got filed away in my brain. Now I'm like, I'm going to share that with everybody. So I cut a clip, threw it on Twitter, and I was like, man, Julius Brents, when he hits, he brings the horses. He does not spare any. He will run folks over. So he's a lot of fun. There's a lot of Seattle fans that want him to add to the secondary and just make it completely devastating. I can see why that's just sort of more of a good thing, but I could see him fitting with the Raiders. He's a lot of fun.
Deonte Banks is another one, although he's getting a lot of first round buzz. So
he's maybe not first round. He could go first round, but he's going to go like start of day 2,
somewhere between 20 and 40.
Yeah.
Right.
First 15 picks around 2, that guy's gone. Like,
Yeah.
he is a very, very good cornerback.
Monopthalamos for €2. Thank you. Thank you for coming back, Mono. What's your take on the Lamar Jackson situation? I actually have a video coming out on this on the Film Room channel next week, and there are a lot of nuances in the CBA that are complicating things. And there's the rule that some people know about that maybe many don't, is that on a guaranteed salary or for guaranteed money, you have to throw it into an escrow account up front at the start of the deal. And that complicates things because even though everybody's a billionaire, not everybody's the same level of billionaire where you could just find 200 million in liquid cash, right? There's a big difference between net worth and liquid cash. So not every owner can just do that. Jimmy Haslam's family could because they're worth 12 billion. So 230 for the Deshaun contract is nothing to them. And Lamar wants something in that realm. And Bisciotti doesn't want to do that because it's a significantly larger chunk of his overall net worth to do that, to sell something to create that kind of liquid asset. That being said, there's rules attached to that rule that complicate things even further, to the point where it depends on the date that the contract is signed. And now, since we are past the January 31st date on the league calendar, technically they wouldn't actually have to put the money into escrow, even if they sign it now. They wouldn't have to put the money into escrow until March 31st of 2024. So they would actually have 12 months to come up with that money. And there's a $15 million deductible. And if there's a huge signing bonus, you deduct that too. So all of a sudden, the math, if I did it correctly, it would go down from we need to come up with 200 million right now to we need to come up with like 150 million in a year, which is a lot more doable for some owners that are like, I need to find liquid cash, right? And they can't do it right now because we're in the middle of a fucking recession, and like billionaires are billionaires for a reason. They don't want to sell things at a loss. Like they would rather wait and come up with the money later. So that little stipulation, also, by the way, you don't actually have to put the full money into escrow. You just have to put 75% of the total contract value, which in the present value calculation on that's determined by interest rates and shit. So like, again, it's a lot. It's needlessly complicated. They pay their lawyers very well, and it's a shit show. What I'm trying to say is it's still doable for the Ravens to sign him. But because of how doable the contract is, I'm still not ruling out that Jim Irsay is going to walk up with that truckload of cash and say, we'll give it to you, and force the Ravens to match it. I'm still not 100% sold he's going back to Baltimore, but I also think the deal is more doable than maybe I thought 2 weeks ago.
Did you see the follower count go down? Everybody just went and got a beer. They're like, I was told there'd be no math. It's a Friday.
It's a lot of fucking math. I know.
Up with that. Bottom line is he would look really good in a Colts uniform, and Irsay is just wild enough to do it. And that would be fun just from a football, like watching analysis, like put Lamar with the skill position players in a Colts uniform, and that's spicy. That would be a lot of fun. The contract thing is a whole nother thing that we just heard about. And there's a lot of stuff around that. Behind the scenes, there's a lot of confusion about what's going on. There's a lot of people sort of throwing their hands up going, what is going on? I thought this was going on. This is not going on. There's not any kind of clarity about, this side's wrong. This was a dumb approach. Many people agree this would be a lot easier if he had an agent. Not necessarily going to say better. I'm just going to say easier, because that is the well-worn path that teams are very used to walking when it comes to these type of things. And right now they don't know what to do. They just call Lamar direct. And while that sounds easy to you and me, we are talking about, $250 million, a lot of money. So it's odd. It's weird. It's a huge sort of stalking horse in terms of the draft and what's going to happen, because that would change things pretty radically in terms of divisional balance. So we'll see. It's kind of crazy how little it's being talked about. I think there's a bunch of fatigue. People are just like, it's weird and I don't understand it, so I'm not going to talk about it. It's still hanging out there. It will get resolved at some point. He is still one of the best players in the NFL. It's kind of amazing that more people aren't talking about it.
Jack, welcome back, Jack. 5 pounds. Evening both. Love all the content. If you could both manifest one player to one team / coaching staff, who would it be? I would manifest Zay Flowers to the Chargers because that would make my job this coming season a whole lot more fun.
Yeah, it's funny. I was going to pick a Chargers receiver. I'll pick Jalen Hyatt though.
Round 2, right? Not round 1?
Not round 1, but
okay,
I just want to see, you and I have had this conversation that I just want to see Jalen Hyatt light it up and Justin Herbert throw it as far as he can. And you got 6 or 8 touchdowns a year off of that because Jalen Hyatt's got wheels, folks. He runs flat by a lot of really good corners that are going to play in the NFL. Same guys he's going to see on Sunday. He just runs by them and they can't do anything about it. They know it's coming. They give him 8, 10, 12-yard cushions. Just runs right by him, scares the living piss out of him because they can't do anything about that. You can only commit a safety to one side over the top so many plays a game. Eventually, you're going to have to leave him uncovered and take your chances. And when you do, if you got a guy like Herbert to just huck it up there, you can score from wherever. And that is terrifying to defensive coordinators. I saw this stat this week that the touchdowns over, I think it's 70 yards, touchdowns that are one play length over 70 yards has decreased every year for the past like 12 years, pretty much.
Interesting.
And it is because we see middle field open, right? We see 2 high safeties. We see we're going to make them work it down the field. We're not going to give up the big chunks. We're not going to give up the big plays. The whole Tyreek Hill crosser is not happening anymore. And if you can do that to a team, it petrifies them because it's just 7. Like you just put up 7, come right back, get the ball back. You might be able to do it again. That's 14 points you got to account for in a game. And if you can do it in a minute or a 3-minute drive, like with regularity, it's terrifying. Teams will change their whole defensive structure to avoid that happening. And a guy like that, because look, the Chargers need speed desperately. I don't care who it is. Zay's
I would even take multiple, like even if they take Zay or Hyatt in either round 1 or round 2, I'd still want them to take Reed from Michigan State right after that.
Yeah, he's super fun.
You can't get enough of it.
Special teams value as well. I really like Jaden Reed in this draft. So, yeah, yes, Jack, we know you're a Chargers fan, and yes, we're throwing Chargers receivers at you. Speed. We would love to see speed merchants playing with Justin Herbert because that would be super, super fun.
Josh for $5. Thank you, Josh. Brett, when's the Lions video coming out, and what do you think their biggest needs are post free agency? Well, the Lions video is coming out after the Lamar video. I'm recording it early in the week next week. And I'm kind of waiting for more of their free agency moves to shake out. I thought they were done, and all of a sudden CJ Gardner-Johnson took like a crazy affordable deal. So I'm like, okay, maybe none of that done. So I'm gonna take stock over this weekend, recap their free agency moves, talk about holes they filled, and then do the full 7-round mock to kind of fill in the remaining gaps. But like you look at their roster, they don't really have any. Like the secondary of Sutton at the nickel, Okudah outside, who we're big fans of. They brought in Emmanuel Mosley, so like corner's good to go. At safety, you have a trio of Kirby Joseph, Tracy Walker, and CJ Gardner-Johnson, which is utterly absurd. Secondary is good to go. You can still throw one in there just cause, but like you don't really need to. I mean, their pass rush, like they had 2 of the most productive rookie edge rushers last year with James Houston, Aiden Hutchinson. Good to go there. Linebacker, Anzalone. I'm not like a big Anzalone guy, but they did hit, in my opinion, on Malcolm Rodriguez, so they're not even really hurting at linebacker. But maybe, if Jack Campbell's there in the 2nd round, he won't be. But if he is there, fuck it, why not?
You sure about that?
I think he goes top 2, like late 1, early 2. Like he's such a rare athlete, man.
He's a really good player, but he's also an inside linebacker, and that
I get it. But I mean, shit. Like I think he's the Bills break glass in case of emergency pick. If like
he's a really good player, and he's gonna bring big value to any defense he goes to. But the whole like he's not gonna be their thing. I'm like, he's a middle linebacker. He just might, and somebody's gonna get a value. They always do. And he's not the only one. Like there are other choices. It's not like he's the preemptive. I saw a bunch of talk in the chat a while ago where you had some Clemson questions about Trenton Simpson, and they're like, there's a lot of sort of variance in the way they view the inside linebacker class. And like Campbell is really good. I think people that watched that defense, the number one defense in the country, understand how good a player is, even though he had great players in front of him, great players behind him. Like he was great in his own right.
Yeah.
Players that don't, or, fans that don't watch a lot of Big Ten football, which I get, don't understand that he is really big, really mobile, super smart, takes good angles. Reminds me a lot of like the Logan Wilsons of the world.
I think, well, honestly, like from an athletic standpoint, he's pretty similar to Tremaine Edmonds when Edmonds was coming out.
Yeah.
But like he's further along than Edmonds was. That's the scary part.
Oh, he's much more advanced as a linebacker. We're talking about athlete versus football player. As a football player, Jack Campbell is light years ahead of where Edmonds was as a football player.
Yeah. I mean, Edmonds is
a different story.
But like as a 19-year-old rookie, like Jack Campbell's better than Edmonds was. So he could go fairly high. Looking at the defensive line, obviously the edge rush is totally fine. Josh Pascal's an inside-outside guy that I loved for them last year. Levi Onwuzurike is still coming off an injury, but like maybe if Jalen Carter at 6, just cause, right? Like I could see it just cause.
There's some really strong smoke that will not happen.
I mean, if I was going to predict, I'd predict they make a move up to 3 to get a quarterback, probably Anthony Richardson. But like if they can't get up to 3 and Richardson's gone, I don't think they take Levis. But Carter would be on the table, assuming everything's checking out off the field. Running back, they're good at running back. Quarterback, again, if they take one, I think they'll have to trade up to 3. I don't think the Colts are letting one go by. Ooh, tight end. I know we love James Mitchell, but ooh.
Wow.
Dalton Kincaid at like 18, maybe?
I'm trying to figure out. Sorry, I just looked up the relative athletic score of Tremaine Edmonds and Jack Campbell.
They're probably pretty close,
quite
right?
Understanding the score. So Campbell's a 9.98 and Tremaine Edmonds is a 9.66. So 9.98, 9.66. Campbell with the better score. They're very close. They're like super close in height. They're like 4 pounds different in weight. 253 versus 249. Bench, didn't register. Campbell hasn't benched. And then 40. It says Tremaine Edmonds was 4.54. I thought he was faster than that, but Jack Campbell 4.65, and then all the other numbers really similar on the way down. And maybe it's just that Campbell did a bunch of the explosion stuff and Edmonds didn't. That may have raised his score, but
that's probably why. Because I think
they're
there's
really close. Other than like a 10th in the 40, you're looking at two guys that are extremely similar sized with very similar scores. And I don't think if you ask most people, because of the perception of Tremaine Edmonds being an uber athlete, which he was, that Jack Campbell is his equal as an athlete. He very much is, with being a step slower. But then again, his brain is already getting him there much, much faster as a linebacker. He's much more developed as a linebacker earlier on. So yeah.
Yeah, I think Jack Campbell is what Tremaine Edmonds was in year 3. Right, he's just already starting
early year 3. I would say you're right.
Yeah, he's just starting there. So all that to say, I think the Lions, because they don't really have any glaring holes, they just need things that could use more depth. They are the team that is in position to trade up with the Cardinals at 3, and I think the Cardinals would gladly do that deal because they got holes all over the fucking place and they need picks. So if the Lions just say, we'll give you 6 and, insert day 2 pick here to go up to 3, we get our quarterback, you're still in position to get either one of the 3 of Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson, or Jalen Carter. Cardinals would be fine with any of those, again, assuming off the field checks out. I think they would do that deal, and then the Lions are sitting pretty. They could still use a whole bunch of picks to just add depth. Like it's like if we want a DT, fine. Keanu Benton, let's take him later. Who cares? They have so many options, but I think because they have so many options, it really means they can do the main one, which is trade up for Anthony Richardson. That's kind of what I expect. Let's see. Cynical for $2. Thank you, Cynical. Do you think any teams wait for Caleb like the Texans? No, I really don't. I think the Texans take Bryce Young. They gotta win, man. They got to start winning. Like they can't tank for 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row. Actually, at this point, like they can't do it. And Bryce Young is a great prospect in his own right. So I think they take
Yeah,
Bryce.
we'll say it again. I get this comment a couple times yesterday and didn't answer it, knowing it this was coming, and it's just a chance to say teams can't do that. It's a fan perception. Like, hey, we'll just hang out, right? You're wasting, and I do mean wasting, a lot of people's time and a lot of owners' money. Like contracts, careers are very short in the NFL. For coaches as well, you can't just say, "Oh, well, yeah, that was the year we didn't try." Like that doesn't play. The NFL's a meritocracy. You have to win whenever you can. And the idea that everybody's just going to sit on their hands in an entire organization for one kid that's still in college who might get hurt and still not come out is a complete fallacy. And right now, we could go back every year and do this, but right now we're all going, "Oh, Caleb and Drake May, they're amazing." Yes, that's true. We all assume that they're both coming out. That's not necessarily true. And we, just like this class, was supposed to be amazing. And then Spencer Rattler went back to school, and Penix went back to school, and Jerkovic went back to school, and like all the guys that would have been the middle depth and the sort of debate worthy quarterbacks in this class all went back to school. And suddenly the class looks like it does now, which is not at all like it looked, at this time last year when people were saying the same thing. "Oh, just wait for Bryce Young, just wait for," like it just doesn't work like that. No teams are not going to do that. People and teams are much more likely to take a swing and then take another swing. Right? The
Yeah.
Cardinals did it in the past. Again, wait times are really short. And people are looking at the Bears and they've said, "Hey, we're going to give Justin all the stuff this year." And they are. They have the most money in free agency. They've already started loading up. They're going to do so in the draft. If Justin doesn't play well this year and the Bears trade back and have additional picks next year besides the Carolina one, they'll load up and go get Caleb or Drake May. They'll be ready to do that. Year 3 of the
And
experiment.
I think that's the main point here is there's a difference between actively tanking and making sure you have assets just in case.
Yeah, no,
Right?
you will do the best you can, and they will go get Bryce Young. And if Bryce Young is amazing and looks good as a rookie and everybody believes, they don't have to. They can use those picks, again, those assets that they held in reserve to build the team around him, which is another great strategy and should be done. But the whole, like, we're just going to sit around and hope for this one quarterback, no matter how good they are. And look, Caleb is that guy. This is not an anti-Caleb brand. This is Caleb is that guy. And whenever he comes out, some team will be extremely happy that they got a hold of him because he is a rare, rare asset. Can you sit around and wait for that? No, because everybody else is too. And you might not be the ones making the call if that happens.
I will say this. So when I was at USC Pro Day this week, I was sitting 4 feet from Caleb during drills during the 40s because he came out, to support his guys. He was sitting on the bleachers with the media right next to us, and his buddies were right there. Like it's me, Caleb, other end of the kitchen bar. Like that's how close it was. And I was watching him interact with his teammates, and obviously all his teammates love him. And I was talking to a teammate after, and like he was just reaffirming all like the Superman stories of like just how utterly absurd he is. Like not just on the field, but off the field. Like he's the fucking dude. What I found funny though is I was looking at because there was 32 teams. All 32 teams were at the pro day. And I was just kind of like looking around at the scouts, and you could just see them all like every once in a while just kind of craning, like just looking at them, just checking them out, just like, okay, let's look over there for no reason in particular. Let's just see what the weather looks like in that direction. Every team was looking at him, and he didn't even do anything. So I think there is absolute interest by some teams to not necessarily tank, but just to make sure that they don't sell the farm on next year's picks too early, because they just want to make sure they have the assets if they need them. And I think that was the initial goal for the Bears, was like, let's just make sure, right?
Did you see Jordan Reed's tweet from, or he wasn't at Ohio State, but from what a scout that was at Ohio State said to him? It's like going to a Lamborghini dealership to shop for a model that's not coming out till next year.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true.
Like, nailed it. That's exactly what it's like to watch Marvin Harrison Jr. on Failed this year. Can't wait to see that guy in a league. And honestly, I added in Brock Bowers yesterday watching some Georgia tape. That guy is that guy is a quote unquote tight end that I would take in the top 10. Like, he is a difference maker of a player. And whenever he comes out, some team will be very happy to get him.
Yeah, I think the media frenzy around next year's draft, like there's a frenzy around this one. The frenzy around next year's draft is going to be fucking insane. I really think so.
We'll see.
FBS Gandhi for $5. Thank you, Gandhi. If Eckler leaves, should the Chargers trade up for Bijan or just stay and get Zay? Two-part question. I don't necessarily think they'll have to trade up to get Bijan because he's a running back. I could see Bijan, like, not that he's not one of the 5 best players in this class. Obviously he is. But I think that there is a legitimate possibility that because he is a running back, and even running backs that have been top 5 picks that have worked out, like Zeke worked out, like he was a good pick. You know, he had a lot of great years in Dallas. They only got 7 of them, and the last 2 weren't great. So I think if you're drafting a running back high and you're hoping you get somebody to be as good as Zeke was in the first 5 years of the Zeke experience, if you're just hoping for that, I don't necessarily think teams would take that in the top 5 anymore. And I think Bijan's a better player than Zeke was coming out of Ohio State. And I love Zeke coming out of Ohio State. Bijan's better. But I still think because of the nature of the position, where like best case scenario is we're hoping for like 5 or 6 years of elite production and then send them on their way. There's a lot of teams that wouldn't take that in the top 20. So I don't necessarily think the Chargers have to trade up to 21 to get him. If they want Bijan, there's a good chance they just take Bijan at their natural pick. And I'd be totally fine with that. I truly would be totally fine with that. But I wouldn't want to give up assets for it. Now, as for stay and get Zay, kind of the opposite argument. I'm not convinced Zay's going to be there. In fact, if you had to make me bet who's going to go first off the board, I would probably take Zay, because I think Zay goes somewhere between 14 and 20 between the Patriots and the Seahawks. I'd bet he goes somewhere in the teens before Bijan. So I think maybe the argument is flipped there a little bit.
Yeah, I just second both of those notions that Bijan is he's a great player. He's a great running back. I love running backs. Everybody knows that. He's a great player. He's not going to go super duper high because he's a running back. Zay is fascinating. He is one of the very top receivers in this draft, and somebody's going to go get him in the first round. The question is, this is the world's biggest game of professional chicken. The NFL draft, it's just a bunch of guys looking around going, are they going to do it? Are they going to do it? Are they going to do it? I don't want to go above it. I don't know. I think they're going to do it. Like, and then somebody does it and everybody goes, damn it. Like, you know, that's all it is. And that is a very real thing that's going to happen in the first round with Zay this year is there's going to be a few teams, not just 2, 3, 4 teams that are all like looking at each other, eyeing each other.
Oh, and they're all back to back to back, right? It's Seattle Chargers and Ravens back to back to back. If he gets past 14, Commanders are going to start getting some
Nelson
calls.
Doesn't tip the scales for you?
Yeah. Maybe not so much, maybe. No. But if he gets past 14, Commanders are going to get calls. They absolutely
for
will.
Sure. Like it's going to be interesting. So
no for $5. Thank you. No. How much does JSN speed actually matter? 4.5 at his pro day, elite 3-cone, 20-yard shuttle, elite route running, et cetera, et cetera. I think it truly does depend, right? Because in the slot, doesn't matter at all. Straight up doesn't matter at all. Outside, the only place where I think it matters is in terms of he can stack on a corner. His 10-yard burst is good enough that he can stack on a corner. It's a matter of having the extra gear to make sure that the corner doesn't get back to being hip to hip, right? And I think just having the extra gear to pull away down the sideline, there's really only one route that it actually matters on, and it's go balls down the sideline. That's it. And if you don't think that he has the speed for that, fine, whatever. Throw a slot fade where you have so much horizontal space that the vertical space doesn't matter as much because you can throw it back shoulder and he's going to adjust to it and do all the JSN stuff. Like you can still throw fades to him from the slot. It's if you line him up outside, can he not just stack on a go ball, but pull away and win on a go ball? That's the one thing that I have a lot of questions about. And that's what keeps me from ranking him above Zay, because Zay can do that. Doesn't mean I don't think he's going to be a first round pick. Obviously he will, but I don't necessarily think his skill set is the same as Olave, who once he got on top of you, he's leaving, and Garrett Wilson, who once he got on top of you, he was leaving. So I think he's just a different kind of outside receiver.
Yeah, there's things we overrate consistently in wide receiver play, and speed's one of them. It's just like arm strength for quarterbacks. You know, we look at quarterbacks and we go, man, he can throw it 70 yards. That's amazing. How often does a quarterback throw it 70 yards? And the answer is almost never. Almost
technically never, because I think the largest air yards pass ever was like 64, 65. So technically never.
Preach that, Coleman. Preach that. Because people will be like, well, no, if the play goes 70 yards, the ball probably traveled 25, 30 yards in the air. And there are very few NFL quarterbacks that can't throw it 25 or 30 yards with good zip. Now, accuracy, timing, anticipation, whole different thing. But in terms of arm strength, we look at quarterbacks with big arms. We go, oh, man, look at that. We look at wide receivers who are just dead fast, who can run by people on the outside. And we go, oh, man, like
Jalen
so
Hyatt.
much of a wide receiver's job is not that.
Yeah.
Is not that. And you
unless you're Jalen Hyatt at Tennessee, and then that's your whole job.
Well, I actually don't think it is with Hyatt. It's the thing that catches your eye for sure. I think there's more there. He's got good toughness over the middle. He's got good hands. He's a better route runner than people think, because people think he cannot physically run anything besides a 9. They're like, if he's not going straight and fast, he can't do it. That's not true either.
Whoa. He ran a post a couple times.
Here we go. Anyways. Nah, but so much of what receivers do in the NFL to get separation, to win catches, is not flat out speed, right? Speed out of breaks, the ability to carry speed through breaks, the ability to break down, the ability to turn defensive backs with routes, heads, moves, eyes, hands. And he's got all that like in bunches. Does he have that straight out ability to burn people down the sideline? No. Is he slow? No. I see a lot of people saying, oh, 4.5 is fast watch. Like he's slow. He's not slow on the field. He ran away. He ran with lots of fast people on the field pretty consistently. Is he going to be a quote unquote burner? No. Is he going to be wide ass open of the majority of his rookie year? Yeah. Yeah, Hartline turns out really good pro-ready receivers, and he is going to hit the ground running just like Olave did, just like Wilson did, if not better. And that's out of those guys' mouths. Like, that's what Wilson and Olave say about JSN. He's better than us. He's a better athlete than us. He's a better receiver than us. I won't pay attention to him.
The OSU DBs are just having flashbacks about going against Marvin in practice. They're like, just get these guys away from us, please.
Right.
All right, Myron Bennett for $5. Thank you, Myron. Isaac Suomalo or the draft. What would you have done if in Pittsburgh's front office? Oh, okay. So this is like a retrospective. What would you have done?
Congratulations on the end part of that, Myron. That's sort of burying the lead there.
I'm in labor and delivering, expecting number 3. Oh shit! Sorry, I'm very illiterate today. First of all, congratulations.
Oh, it's awesome. That is the ultimate bury the lead right there. Oh, I have a question about a guard in Pittsburgh. And by the way, I'm expanding my family, and it's going to be one of the biggest days ever. No, Suomalo, I like it. I think it's a good move. You know what you're getting. And yeah, it doesn't, in my mind, it doesn't preclude them from later in the draft dipping into what is a very good interior offensive line class and getting a guy. You're still seeing guys like Chandler Zavala and Mafi consistently ranked in like the 6th round. Like,
there is no way that Zavala goes in the 6th round. And we both know that.
I get it. You get it. Other people like there are other players around them too that we, maybe aren't as familiar with, but like, it's just an indication of how much skill there is in the internal offensive line class for this year. So I wouldn't put it past him to double dip, but they know what they're getting, and that guy's a starter, and they're going to get good solid reps out of him. So,
And I'll tell you what though, I would still take Zavala third round and put him behind Isaac at left guard.
oh sure,
Because if Sumala goes down, we're fine, right? Like
but you got to play chicken for that move, and I actually would wait, because I would wait if I had a top around 4 pick. I would wait just because I think I could.
I wouldn't trust it.
Yeah, but if you don't, you can have Mafi.
I know, but
I know. I love them both.
I'm a firm believer in go get your guy, you know.
I get that too, but that's how Ryan Pace got in trouble. So I've changed
That's
my
true. Well, when your guy is with Trubisky, yeah.
And always trade up to get them, because you're so sure that there's not another guy. I'm like, there's another guy. Like,
although I will say, looking back, like
there's another guy.
I firmly believe Leonard Floyd turned out to be a pretty good player.
Anthony Miller. I can keep going.
Now, I will say Leonard Floyd over Laramie Tunsil.
I'm just
probably not a good idea.
I can keep going. So, anyways, no, solid move for the Steelers. I don't hate it at all.
Also, congrats on being a father again. Congratulations. Yes. Evan Kearney for €5. Thank you, Evan. Missed these thoughts on Chicago's offseason so far. Nailed it. Hit it out of the park. Got a number 1 receiver for Justin, which was the big thing. Got a whole bunch of extra draft assets. Looking at the depth chart, again, there's still holes that need to be filled, but significantly less than we had a month ago, right? Offensive line, I still think does need help. I would love to know what the fuck's going on with Tevin Jenkins. That part I don't think we'll know for a while, but I either way, they need depth. Zavala is another guy that I think would be perfect for them. Even after the signing of Nate Davis, I still think that I would take a swing guard like Zavala. And because if Whitehair or Tev or Davis get hurt, although Tev's going back to right tackle, but still, if one of the guards get hurt, Zavala goes in, we're just fine. I also think that he might be able to play a little bit of center as well. On defense, secondary is mostly fine. Linebackers obviously good. We could still use some edge rush help, but like there's significantly fewer holes to address here. It's get defensive line, get offensive line, and then we're rolling. And the NFC North is a lot more vulnerable this year than it was last year. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to get the shit kicked out of them either. So I think that Poles so far has had an amazing offseason, and it could get even better in about a month from now.
It's really interesting. They've done a very good job. There are very few of the moves that they've made that I've gone, meh. Most of them have been, ooh, okay. That works. That plays. Didn't expect it, but yep, that's good. We'll see how the offensive line shakes out. Brett alluded to the fact we're still not sure how that's shaking out. Depends on who you listen to as to who's going to play where. They need some more depth there and probably one more starter. Now, interestingly enough, that might not come from the draft. Everybody's assuming it's going to come from the draft, and it may well come from the draft. However, they still have a bunch of money that they have to spend, not would DJ like to spend one. Here's the thing. They're going to be very active after June 1 cuts, right? June 1st cuts, when people are cut because their contract will progress to the next year. It can be spread over an additional year. They will be active in the cut down market when guys who maybe look like they're going to lose out to a rookie say, I don't want to do the competition. I want to play behind them. Cut me loose. Like, give me my rights, right? There's always a handful of those guys. Bears are going to be in that market. They're going to have to be. They have to spend like $40 more million-ish dollars. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a lot of money, and they have to spend it. There's a floor. There's a spending floor, just like there's a spending cap. And they're gonna have to throw money at a bunch of people. And it's not the rookie class is set. Like, they know how many picks they have, and all those picks are slotted. They know roughly, with escalators even, how much they have to put aside for the rookie class. It ain't 40 million. It's not even close. It's like 12. So they got a lot of money to spend left. They are not done. And that could be trades, could be extensions, could be, again, cut downs, casualties, June 1st, 90-man roster cut down, like whatever. And we're going to see the Bears add a bunch of talent and continue to add talent throughout the summer. It's not going to be set until like mid-August. And then you're going to know, okay, what are they going into this year with? And you can really say, what did they do in the offseason? It's going to be a thing. Like, and yeah, bring Fluker to Chicago on a 1-year deal, front load it, make it incentive based, give him a fair.
Why not? Yeah.
And have him out there. And then you just have less questions. And yes, draft a center. And yes, draft a guard. Like, just load it up. Poles was an offensive lineman. People forget that himself. That's a position he played in college. He came from Kansas City. They understand like the shotgun approach to fix the offensive line. He's going to do it. The question is how, and we'll see where those assets get spent. Everybody's assuming right now it's a tackle at 9. It might be, but it might also not be because there's a lot of other ways that they could go around solving that problem.
Find a Cure for $2. Thank you, Cure. Bootleg Gaming Channel. I'll tell you what, when EJ starts playing Diablo 4. We'll do that.
I could play Diablo 4. I liked earlier Diablo games. I don't think I played 3. I think the last one I played was probably 2, but that's all right. No, we both game, and we've talked about it. Certainly plenty of our friends in this space game as well as athletes. All the athletes game. Pretty much everybody games anymore. So who knows? Maybe. We'll see.
Do you play FIFA?
I don't. I know, I think Nate Tice is a big FIFA guy.
Yeah. Because that seems to be what even NFL players play. Is they play FIFA. They don't play Madden.
There's a lot of guys. Well, who was it? It was Zavala in our interview.
Yeah.
Said, well, I used to play soccer. I was a traveling soccer guy. I played travel soccer when I was a kid before I played football. And we are like, oh, because we were talking about the ability to switch to right side, left side. He says, not a big deal. I played soccer. We were like, oh, you have to use either foot. Okay, cool. So there, and so many players, there's guys like Habakkuk Baldonado, who grew up in Italy, right? He's from Rome, right? So he definitely played soccer growing up, 100%. And
I'll tell you about one. So I ran into a USC lineman at the pro day. He wasn't coming out this year. He's going to be starting next year at either right tackle or left guard, which are about as different as they could possibly be. But he practices at all 5 positions. His name is Cooper Lovelace. And he didn't start playing till he was a senior in high school. So he got a late start and then went through like the fucking gauntlet that is Kansas JUCO. Which you know how crazy
I do.
Crazy Kansas JUCO is.
Like did I tell you that story that I was hanging out with the Kansas JUCO guys at Buffalo Wild Wings this year watching?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
One of them was Butler, and one of them was anyways, he was an alum of another school, but they were talking about it, and like all the guys that have come out of Kansas JUCO, like JPP was in Kansas JUCO.
It's crazy out there, man.
Yeah, it's for real. It's one of the hottest JUCO scenes in the country, if not the hottest. So.
Well, Lovelace, so he had offers from USC, Florida, Mississippi State, everywhere but Kansas State, oddly enough. But I was talking about his background, and he grew up as a gymnast and a swimmer. So he's a 6'5", 295-pound lineman that plays all 5 spots and can do the splits. And I told him straight, I was like, oh, scouts are going to love you. They're going to be all over you, dude.
Zaven was a gymnast growing up.
Makes sense. Makes sense. All right, Alex Williams for $5. Thank you, Alex. When do you see the first tight end going? Whoever it is, Dalton, Washington, Meyer, Musgrave. Who do you see as the highest ceiling player? If we're just talking about receiving, highest ceiling is Dalton Kincaid because he's basically a receiver, like a bigger one, but he basically is. In terms of like complete tight end, I wouldn't even say it's Darnell. I would say it's Mayer. In terms of like complete Y tight end, blocker, and receiver.
Are you talking about ceiling?
Ceiling as like an overall 3-down player. I think Mayer is the highest total ceiling because I think that he moves better than Washington. Washington's a better blocker, but I think in terms of getting in and out of routes and everything like that, I have Mayer as a better receiver than Washington. Washington is a better blocker than Mayer. Dalton is a better receiver than everybody. Okay. That's how I have it ordered.
Got it. We'll see that as different. Right now, I would say that's almost floor, right? The floor for Mayer is way higher. Like he is better at those skills than Washington is right now. If we're talking about ceiling and what they could do eventually, Washington's athletic ceiling and therefore probably his ceiling as a player, although those two things are not directly linked, is light years higher than Mayer. Mayer is pretty much maxed. Like I don't see a
I don't know
whole.
if I agree with that.
I don't think I see a whole lot of. Well, put it this way: who do you think has more room between their current state and their ceiling, Mayer or Washington?
It's real close.
I'm
It's
surprised
real
you
close,
have to
but
think about that. I really am.
I
Like
I
I would say
again,
Washington's
I love
ceiling
Mayer
is.
though. I love
Yeah,
Mayer.
no, I mean, it's interesting. I think he is closer to a finished product right now, but I also think he's closer to his max. Washington is not closer to a finished product, is really good at some things and underdeveloped at others in a kind way of saying it, but he's a wild athlete at that size. You see him do stuff on the field and you're like, Mayer couldn't dream of doing that stuff.
For me, I think Mayer as a ceiling, Mark Andrews that can block better, which is pretty fucking high. But I'm also somebody who's way higher on Mayer than a lot of people are.
Yeah,
So
I would say you
acknowledge
are
that.
certainly than I am. I'm not down on Mayer. Like I like Mayer. This is not anti-Mayer, but it's funny from just the ceiling discussion. Like it's interesting, and that's why I love having these discussions. In terms of the first TE, it's probably Kincaid because the NFL wants guys that are weapons, and he is a flat out weapon. Said it he was one of my gems in offensive gems, and I said it in the gems episode as well that like if you want a weapon in the passing game, it's Dalton Kincaid. He's a weapon right now. He's going to make you better in that area for almost every team in the league. There are probably 5 or 6 teams in the league where he would clearly not make them better. There are probably 5 or maybe 6 more, but I'm struggling to figure out who the tail end of that would be. That would be a push. And the rest of the teams he would flat out make better in terms of what teams are looking for in receiving from the tight end spot. Like clearly, if you went to Chicago, like Cole Kmet is a better blocker. Dalton Kincaid is a much better receiver than Cole Kmet is right the hell now. Like today.
I think we can at least agree that minimum 3 tight ends are going in the first round. It might be 4.
I don't know. It's tough. That 31st pick, man, that's rugged. 31 picks this year instead of 32. Miami had to forfeit theirs. It really screws up that back 5-6 picks. Honestly, one of my favorite periods in the entire draft. The back like 8 picks of round 1 every year is when crazy shit that people said that'll never happen happens every year because
5th-year options matter, man.
People trade up 5th-year options. People go, bag it. We really need a center. And, we're not taking the second best running back or the 5th best edge at that point or the 5th best tackle. We're going to take the best center because he's higher on our board. And so a center goes in round 1. Or, somebody goes, look, we have these other positions filled. We really need a middle linebacker. Like, Jack Campbell's a really good player, or whoever they have as their top linebacker is a really good player. We're just going to take him. And they go at 28. And everybody looks back at those drafts and goes, oh, man, I'm a middle linebacker, 28. Like, I love that period of draft because it's, for us, one of the most interesting, and it sets up day 2 and builds all this drama about, oh, X is still on the board, and we thought they wouldn't be, but look what happened in the last 8 picks. Happens every year. So it'll be fascinating. 3 tight ends in the first? Maybe. 2, I think. 3, possibly 4. No way. That's like when people go 6 quarterbacks are going every year. Like,
no way.
The average is 3.8. Like, and that's a 10-year average. Like, is it going to be more than that this year? Probably. I think 4 go in the first round. But after 4, you're like, ooh, do I want the 5th best quarterback or do I want the 2nd or 3rd best wide receiver? Do I want the 3rd or 4th best edge, the 3rd or 4th best offensive tackle? Or do I really, really want like the 5th or 6th best quarterback in this draft?
Yeah.
It's a tough value proposition.
Thomas Arnold for $279 Canadian. Does Tyree Wilson fit the Hawks scheme? Does Kancey? Yes to both. Honestly, yes to both. Now, Kancey is a one down player for them, right? Like, I don't think Kancey's a early down player for them. No. But in terms of fitting the scheme, yeah, absolutely fit.
I would have a lot of fun, I think. And you never can tell because people react differently to being moved further away from the ball or closer to the ball on the defensive line. And we see this every year with some guys that are somewhere in the middle in that 3, 4, 5 tech role. And we're like, are they better when they're closer to the ball? Are they better when they're a little bit further out? And we had guys like that last year. We've got guys like that this year. Kancey, I love his physical skill set, but I wonder how much of that is because he plays where he does. He plays inside. He plays in very short spaces and he wins immediately, right? It's half a step and he can beat people. I'm not sure that would translate to the outside. I think it would because he's physically very, very gifted. He's extremely quick. But I would love to see Kancey in the Cliff Avril role in the old Seahawks defense. I realize that's not their defense anymore, but like I would be fascinated to see that. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, he would be much better off on the other end, playing the heavy end in the Seahawks old defense. I think he fits. I think if you have a defense where a guy like Kancey does not fit, you might need to sort of relook at your defense because he's a guy that can provide interior pressure pretty regularly, and that is a huge asset to any defense. The Wilson stuff, especially being here in the Northwest, a lot of Seahawks draft talk. And some people, this has been kind of a consistent low drumbeat in the background is, I'm not sure Wilson fits in the Hawks D. And I'm like, if Wilson doesn't fit in your D, you need to remake your defense because Wilson is wildly talented. I'm on record saying he's going to go very high in this draft. And I still believe that really strongly. If you can't fit a guy that talented with that size in your defense, you're doing something wrong or you're completely loaded. You know, you're the Chargers and you have Bosa and Mac and it's just a value proposition. You're like, I'm not doing it. If you have a need and the Hawks do have a need and you look at a guy like Wilson and go, he doesn't fit, something's up. That doesn't pass the smell test.
Especially because he absolutely does fit as somebody who can play 6 technique or stand up or play like a wide 9 with a 4-point stance and just get off the edge. You know, you can kick him into a 3. Like, he's the most Seahawky of all of the edge guys in this class. So
I believe that guy is so wildly talented. And again, if there was no Will Anderson in this draft, he would be the Will Anderson guy.
Far and away.
He would be the Will Anderson guy. And, you know, Will is a mutant and is going to play extremely well. I saw his total pressures per season for his time over the last 3 years.
And like 200.
Well, there was a drop off this year. And they're right. It went from 82 to 60. And the year before that was 62. So, you know, it went 62, 80, 60.
Like, also, you know why? They played him at fucking 5 tech. Like, no shit. It went down. Like,
you're saying there was a drop off 260. Most guys are thrilled if they get to 35. Like if they get to 30 or 35, they had a really good year that's attracting a lot of scouts' eyes. He had double that in the year that you're saying is down, so you're worried about picking him. What?
People overthink this shit, man.
Fine, just leave him to 9 then. Just let him slide.
Yeah. Paxman for $5. Thank you, Pax. In Veach we trust, but the lack of moves / letting guys go has me worried. Can you help restore my faith? Regardless, KC still runs the conference. That last part's the important part. Yeah. They still run the conference. They're fine. I wouldn't worry about them, you know, not going all out to spend and everything like that. Because remember, even though the Mahomes contract is a piggy bank that they can draw from whenever they want to, they don't want to have to draw from it too much right now, or else it's gonna make the later years kind of hard. Like, it's not like they don't ever have to pay the money. It's more so they're just changing when they have to pay the money. So they don't want to be overly aggressive because they still do have to mind how that contract is structured. That being said, I do still think that they're in on Hopkins, which is why they did make some moves to clear up money. And maybe they haven't been as aggressive in free agency with other guys because they don't want to spend too much too early because they might have to have room for Hopkins. I still think they are very much in on it. I think it's between KC, Buffalo, and New England at this point would be my 3 guesses. And you know what? If they get Hopkins after a relatively quiet March, I think Chiefs fans are going to be just fine. And they're going to understand that it was all part of the plan to get Mahomes another true number one receiver after, getting so many assets from the Tyreek trade, which then helped them rebuild their secondary and win the Super Bowl. Maybe we can go back to having a true number one this year who theoretically, based on reports, would take less money in KC than he would take elsewhere anyway, because he wants to win a ring. That is not a luxury that Tyreek would have given them. Tyreek wanted 30 a year. They were not going to give it to him. I don't think Hopkins is going to cost them 30 a year. So you could still get a top 10 receiver, an ultra productive receiver that isn't costing 30 million a year. That's a better weapon than anybody they had last year. And they're still the best team in the AFC. So Chiefs fans, just wait for the Hopkins thing to come down. I still think they're in on it. Buffalo's definitely trying to give them a run for their money, but we'll see. Just be patient.
Okay. I'm going to blow your mind. Hopkins goes to Buffalo. Woohoo. Diggs and D-Hop, like, yahoo. That would be tremendous for Buffalo. KC fans, we didn't get him. They go for OBJ. Nope, they don't get him either.
Allen Robinson.
No. Although, I don't even know what Allen Robinson is anymore. I really don't after the last 3 years. I thought I knew, but I don't. So Brad Spielberger put out his first round mock today. He's put out a lot of Bears mocks for the whole draft, but this was the whole league first round. And you never guess who was slotted to go to KC at 31.
Addison? Who?
Zay.
I mean, that's a pipe dream of all pipe dreams,
but
it's one that will be super fun.
I saw it, and I gotta say the reaction was like, "Oh, this would be CEH plus."
CEH, but actually work out, yeah.
Well, who knows? You never know with the draft. We love the CEH pick, and we still think he's a good player. Has he been as productive and as much of a cog in their offense as we thought he was going to be? No, absolutely not. Like, However, yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh, that would be one of the all-time draft day reactions. Because look, what you said last is most important. They run the division. You got Pat. You don't need to worry. If you add Zay to that mix after all those sort of ups and downs with the rest of the receiver market, you're fine.
Now, what if Buffalo trades for Hopkins and draft Zay? Ooh.
Well, or the other one is trade for Hopkins and draft Bijan.
Fuck. I mean, if you got to score 35 to beat Mahomes, you might as well do it in style, right?
Yeah, go after tools you can do it with. I actually don't really want to see Bijan go to Buffalo because I think they can do what they do in their running game with a whole lot less. Like Bijan would be amazing wherever he goes. Like that's not a thing.
But it is overkill. Yeah.
He would not be used to his full potential there as much as many other places.
Who is your OT1 so far? Should the Pats go wide receiver or OT? I don't have an OT1 yet, to be perfectly honest. I haven't decided. I'm going to do 2 more games of all of the top 4 guys, which is both the Ohio State guys, Broderick Jones and Darnell Wright. I'm going to do 2 more games. I've done 4 for each, and I still haven't settled my order. So we'll have our rankings out fairly soon, but
yeah.
I'm just not there yet. I'm really not there yet.
I honestly don't think it matters. It's something I said earlier in terms of fit is super important, and they are all different. Like the guys we've talked about are not the same physically. They don't play the same way. They don't have necessarily the same strengths. They're really good players, and they are the top tackles in this draft, in our opinion. And they're going to be in the top tier. They're going to be in the top bubble, right? And if the top bubble is 4, the ranking doesn't matter as much. Right? They're in the top tier. You can pick any one of these guys, and if they're the system fit for your team, left tackle, right tackle, run blocker, pass blocker, whatever, you're still doing fine. You got one of the top tackles and hopefully the one that fits your team the best. Other than that, it's really semantics. Like, oh, that guy was 2 and you had him at 3.
Oh, I forgot Skoronski.
I was going to say, I
got to do 2 more of him too.
Is this because you believe Skoronski is a guard, or are you willing to give him a shot at tackle? Because he's the one that really, when people ask me the same question, who's your top tackle? I'm like, well, I'm not sure if I think Skoronski's a tackle. I think he could play tackle, but if he plays tackle, is he at the top? like he is for Brandon Thorn, which I have a lot of respect for, or is he because of that? And some people say, oh, like especially he's been linked to the Bears, plays in Northwestern, he grew up in Chicago. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that smoke and fire that links the two. But people say still, well, I don't think if you pick him at 9, he's a guard. And I'm like, well, if he's going to be an all-pro guard and he's going to keep interior pressure out of a quarterback's face, why wouldn't you? And I realize there's a salary differential and everything else, but if you can take a player in the top 10 and he is going to be one of the 2 to 4 best players at his position in the league, like, why would you not take a guard in the top 10 if you were that sure he was going to be that good? Now, I'm not saying he is or anything else, but he's the one that really is the cog that messes things up for me at the top because, is it 4? Is it 5? Is he a tackle? Is he a guard? We'll see.
Random guy for $5. Thank you, random guy. The Broncos seem to want to drop their edges into coverage over their linebackers. So is there any that can do that in round 3 or later? Boy, this is my time to talk about BJ Thompson from Stephen F. Austin, who is a 6'5", 240-pound freak of nature who somehow did not get invited to the combine. I really don't understand why. But he runs 4.4. He jumps 40-plus inches. His broad jump, I think he said, was 11 feet. And when EJ and I were at the Shrine Bowl, he was there. And we were watching the edge guys go through coverage drop drills. And I swear to God, he looks like a safety. Like, he moves so differently than even the top edge guys in this class. Like, as an athlete, he is utterly insane. He is an older prospect, and even though he is an older prospect, he is still rather undercooked in terms of development. But I think if you put him with that Broncos coaching staff, considering he already demonstrated what he can do as a coverage dropper, flipping his hips, planting, everything like that, I would love to develop that, because even if we're just getting like 6 good years out of his athletic prime, what he can do as an athlete is so special. And I think that they could turn BJ Thompson into a very, very nice rotational edge player that can also cover guys.
I got a different one.
Who?
I'm actually surprised you didn't bring it up because, I don't know, there's supposed to be an interview with him dropping on the channel today.
Oh, Yasir Abdullah. Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, Yasir Abdullah from Louisville. I didn't rewatch him today on purpose. I rewatched him because I was watching Bergeron and I watched Syracuse versus Louisville. And of course, Louisville has, Yasir on one end, Yaya Diaby on the other end. They've got Keitrell Clark in the secondary. So again, and then you got Bergeron, you got Sean Tucker. I mean, they're draft guys all over that game. But Yasir ran a 1.48 10-yard split.
Yeah.
1.48. There are a lot of receivers that didn't run 1.4 anything. Like, there are a lot of corners that don't run 1.4 anything. They run 1.57. They run 1.62. That, 1.48 as a linebacker is ridiculous. He jumped basically 37 inches, 36 and a half. He ran a 4.47 40, right? This is a linebacker. This guy can cover, does cover, has interceptions deep down the field on his tape. Like, he is a super fun player. He is going to be available in that range. He's still going to be on the board. Yaya is probably going to go before him, his teammate, because he's bigger. He blew up the combine. He just has more physical potential that people can really slot in at that end or edge slot and say, hey, he looks more prototypical. Yasir's a little bit smaller, but super well-rounded and would fit in that role perfectly.
EJ, I knew this was coming. I prepared for it.
Yes,
sure.
indeed.
I don't even have to get up. I already grabbed it before we went on air.
Oh.
Now, I haven't unpacked my Bill O'Brien jersey they sent me yet, so I knew this was coming as penance. And you know what? Joke's on you. I was going to do it for free. But you paid for it anyway.
Oh, man.
Oh, God,
so
the smell already came out of the bottle.
The bottle in question is Oregon Spirits. And it is absinthe. And this podcast has a history with absinthe.
It smells awful.
It's never going to smell great again. Anyways, yikes. I will not be joining you because my bottle's up in the garage. It's in the garage because my garage is nice and cool and it will keep, but it's nowhere near me, and that's a good thing. So
things we do for money on the internet.
Things you do for money on the internet. I'm not doing that. Whew. Is it any better knowing that there's not 3 behind it? Oh,
don't cry, Brett. Don't cry. Oh, fuck.
man.
Oh, God, that's...
Yeah, it's not what I'm doing on a Friday afternoon. I'm going to drink some orange seltzer and be thoroughly thrilled with my choice because
I think my organs are melting.
they are.
Fuck.
Oh, absinthe on a Friday. That is a heck of a way to kick it off. Yikes.
Smooth.
All right, we should get back to talking about the draft. Or you could let me talk about the draft since you're probably not able to talk right now.
Hold on, there's... I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Scroll up and bring it up. You don't have to introduce it. Just put it on the screen. I can read.
There we go.
All right. Hey, guys. Bears fan from Brazil. Excellent. Is Broderick Jones the next Teron Armstead? I don't hate that comp at all. I just watched Broderick Jones again yesterday morning. I really like him as a tackle. He has a lot of those traits in terms of movement, in terms of length. He is, I think, more polished than Teron Armstead was at a similar place. Again, having played in the SEC, high-level national champ for the last couple of years. His technique is better than Armstead's was. It's more refined. Is he athletically at the same ceiling? No, I think Armstead was a slightly better athlete, but that's not saying that Broderick Jones is slow or heavy-footed or anything else. He's an amazing athlete at his size, but Armstead was pretty legendary as an athlete. I don't hate the comp. Especially because Teron Armstead became very successful in the league. And I think Broderick Jones will be successful in the league too. Would I be comfortable if the Bears ended up taking him as tackle? Yes. And that is left tackle or right tackle. I think he could play either. And I think that about several of the top prospects, not all, but several, even some of the ones that played right, I think could play left. There's 1 or 2 that play left that I'm not sure would translate to the right. And there's a couple I actually think might be better right tackles just because of their play style. I don't hate it. And hey, thanks for checking us out. We know we have lots of Brazilian fans and we love them. We know the NFL is huge and growing in Brazil and always happy when you stop by. So thanks very much.
If he's not the Teron Armstead, I have another comp that I've kind of been bouncing around in my head for him, and that's Dwayne Brown, who's another guy who, again, very, very. Although he's not built the same. Like Dwayne he was thick, right? He was
Dwayne's
thick.
A big dude.
But in terms of like movement skills, like that first step, like when I see it, I'm like, oh, that looks just like Dwayne in his prime. And I watched a lot of him in Houston and, then he went to Seattle and he was still just as good there. And again, the gut doesn't look the same, but like the first step and just how he gets to landmarks, how he comes in with that punt, it screams Dwayne Brown to me. I think he's very, very
scary to the second level.
Yeah.
Like when he is clear and he knows it. So he's looking, he's talking to his line mates. He's looking at, okay, you got, gets the shift from Stetson Bennett. Okay. And then he's looking, right. And he's like, oh, I'm clear to the second level. I don't have any responsibility with the primary guys. Like that little linebacker right there is mine. And he steps up with that frame and that first step, I swear to God, it's 2.5, 3 yards. And he just warps up into this guy's chest and he's massive, right? And the guy's like, oh God. And that's it. That rep is over. He's like, hi. And he's there so quickly. That ability, that movement skill at his size is, especially when he's got that clean release, is like, wow, he got to the second level fast for a guy his size.
Riley Turner for $10. Thank you, Riley. Appreciate that. One of my favorite linebackers is Florida's Ventrell Miller. I prefer run defending linebackers over cover linebackers. What do you guys perceive as need to haves for the linebacker position? This is a very complicated question. For me, it comes down to instinct, and that applies to both to the run and the pass. When you look at the best linebackers in the league, obviously some of them are amazing athletes. Fred Warner is an incredible athlete. But I think what really makes them elite linebackers is the fact that they have an innate understanding of defensive structure. They understand how a run fit changes when you're in a single high look versus a two high look, because the run fits are very different when you have two high safeties versus one high safety. They understand based on what the front is. They understand the block recognition techniques for defensive linemen based on the front they're in and how they're going to react to certain plays when they see them, how they're going to react to certain blocks when they see them. And so when they have that understanding of what the run fit is drawn up to be based on the coverage they're in, how the coverage is supposed to be reacting to motion. For instance, maybe they start out in two high and then they get a jet sweep. They're spinning down to one high on the fly. Quarters can turn into cover three in a half a fucking second. And understanding how your run fit changes based on motion, understanding how your defensive line are going to play certain techniques so that you can just feel it. Because when it hits in the NFL, you don't have time to think. You got to just know. And just knowing is what we call instincts. So I think that also applies to the pass game too, because when your coverage changes against motion, you got to know what your responsibilities are. Maybe you used to just be walling number three. Now you're carrying number three. You got to know that. So I think it's about intelligence and instincts. And then, obviously athleticism matters too. But like, if you're a freak athlete that doesn't know where the fuck he's supposed to be, as EJ likes to say, and this is my favorite saying of his, you just get to the wrong place faster. So that would be what I look for, is intelligence and instincts.
Yeah, it is a fascinating question. And you see a wide range as much at this position as any position in terms of the difference between great athletes and great football players that aren't necessarily one or the other. And, I just, for the fun of it, pulled up Matt Milano's RAS, 695, and he was small, 6 feet tall, 223. A lot of people would say that's safety sized. Coming out, ran a 4.67, 35-inch vertical, which isn't terrible, but it's not great. Doesn't have super long arms, has 32-inch arms. You would look at a guy like Matt Milano and say, borderline NFL linebacker, probably special teamer. Matt Milano is a great linebacker, and it's because he understands and he can use that physical package that he has to get to the right place as quickly or faster than, in some cases, people who are faster than him as athletes. Mm-hmm. So what are the need to haves? The need to haves are, you can't be a terrible liability in either, right? You cannot be a terrible liability. You can't just get blown up in every run play. You got to find a way to get around, get under, get through, and at least hold the play up so your teammates can make it for you. And same in the pass. If you can't turn at all, and I find one of the things that I'm looking for more in linebackers than size, used to be size. I used to kind of have size thresholds. And that's really gone away, is flexibility. I need guys to be physically flexible. I need them to be able to turn, to twist, to get off blocks, to be able to change their feet in direction. Cover a little, because a lot of stuff they're covering in short zone is out routes and change of direction stuff. It's not necessarily, well, he's not fast enough to run with a number three. Well, if the number three is fast, not very many linebackers are, right? There's not a lot of linebackers out there that run 4.3 anything. There's a bunch that run at the 4.4s now. I mean, we just talked about Usiri ran a 4.47. That's faster than a bunch of the receivers ran in Indy this year. But that you can't guarantee that. So you need that flexibility, right? Because all an offense wants to do is get you going the wrong way or get you in a spot that is 2 steps the wrong way to make the play, right? Exactly. Run or pass, doesn't matter. All they want to do is create space. That's it's funny. People talk about engines, right? And how to make an engine more powerful. And they're like, an engine's an air pump, right? A traditional gasoline engine is an air pump. The more air you pump, the more power you make, period. Done. End of story. And like, the more space you make as an offense, the more successful you're going to be. I don't care. Run, pass, like all they're trying to do with all the pre-snap motion and the alignment and eyes and everything else is get you out of the way, right?
Yep.
Just make an opening so I can run through it or throw through it. That's it. That's when you get right down to offense, that's what it is. It's about spacing, right? And if they can create space easily versus you, meaning you're not flexible, you don't react well, you don't understand, like, you're a liability. And so my need to have is, you can't be a liability. And the things that sort of lead to that are having instincts that you talked about, good brain to understand, a football brain to understand where you're going to go and what people are trying to do to you so you can counter it. And then having the physical flexibility to turn, to run, to get out of those situations and, be where they don't want you to be, to influence that play in a negative fashion. That's your job as a defender. So that's that.
Autumn McComb for $5. Thank you, Autumn. Welcome back. Haven't seen you in a while. Then again, we haven't done a stream in a while. So that's probably why.
In a while.
Also, you should try Guilty Gear. It's a fighting game I've gotten into and I adore it. Also, they have a trans girl character. Guilty Gear is the 8th different fighting game that I have on my list that I have. So keep in mind, I grew up playing Soul Calibur, right? Like Soul Calibur was my shit. The thing is, though, as I've gotten older, I've gotten significantly worse at fighting games. I am horrible at them. Like, I do not have the reaction time for it. And EJ, I don't know if I told you this. I tried going back and playing Counter-Strike a couple months ago.
Oh, did you?
Fuck, dude. I was like, bro, I used to dominate in this shit. I'm at like 2-15.
Yeah. My KD is in the toilet. No, Super Twitch games, not great at those anymore. And things that also require like a lot of computing power, because I play a lot on Xbox now. I have a computer, but I don't use it to game for the most part. And we're not going to get into that debate here. I understand it. For a long time, I was a PC gamer hardcore. Then I got busy in life and I was like, I just want to turn the thing on and not have to go, oh, you need to update all your shit to play games. Oh, damn it. But a buddy of mine plays Rainbow Six Siege. You've met him. We had lunch with him in Texas.
It's so hard.
Yeah. Odney is a huge Rainbow Six Siege guy and has been for years. And he's really good at it. He plays with the same 3 or 4 guys. And every once in a while, we used to play together. And he'll have, I'm like, dude, I'm only 4. You only get 4 guys in that game, or 4 players on one team in that game. And I'm like, dude, I'm a liability. You're going to have to carry me. Like, you all know every little crack in those maps that you're just waiting for somebody to show up in and you're going to zap. Like, nah, I'm lazy running around like, guys, what? Snap. Oh, damn it. Come pick me up. So, yeah.
Just give me the guy with the shield. I'll just walk around with that.
Yeah, right.
that's all I could do. Let's see. Kevin Monroe for $10. Thank you, Kevin. Thoughts on Keaton Mitchell from ECU? Love the content. Keep it up. He is on my list. I was literally just about to watch him tonight. So
get some popcorn.
I don't quite have an answer for that one yet. But
get some popcorn, man. He's fast. He's like Ferrari fast.
So I've heard. Yes.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun. He's more than that too. He's a little bit like Hyatt that way for me, where everybody's like, oh, he's fast. And you going, oh yeah, the speed is there. Absolutely. They're correct. He is fast. He is more than that though. He's really productive. I like him. He's a guy that is going to get pushed down in this draft just because of numbers. I don't think he's going to go high, and quite frankly, high is end of the 3rd or earlier for running backs in this draft. There's maybe a handful that are going to go above that, and then there's a whole bunch that are going to go below that. And he's in that mix. I think he'll go higher in that tier, if that makes sense. Somebody's going to fall in love with that game-breaking ability and be able to sort of say, hey, we have the other things we need in our other backs in the room. We really want that from him. Like his game a lot. Don't think he's as one-dimensional as people make him out to be. Does he have room to improve? Yeah, he does. He's got some things he doesn't do great. He's not awesome in the passing game. I'm going to look something up, but enjoy watching his tape because it is fun when you hit the highs. And there are lots of them. You don't have to wait a super long time for that to occur. You will know it.
I'm going to do him and the Tulsa kid.
Generic.
Prince, the other kid who ran 4.4, who apparently is just getting crazy buzz right now around the league after his combine performance. So I gotta. That's the thing. This running back class is like 40 deep, dude.
Yeah,
like, there's no way of getting through it all. There's zero chance. Some
people are like, "Oh, who'd you watch?" Oh, he's not on my list. No, not on my list of not guys I've watched. I have a very specific list of 2023 RBs in receiving yards per game. And I was like, I don't remember him being on here, and he's not on it, which is weird. Oh yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. He's actually fairly high. He's up about a third. He's right under Sean Tucker and right above Travis Dye. Let's see. His number is 0.68.
Have you done Alonzo Gilliam, the UC Davis running back yet?
No.
He's like a lot of people are saying if you don't do Kansas State, Mighty Mike,
Deuce.
love him, Deuce.
Deuce.
If you don't do Deuce, you do Alonzo Gilliam as like a seventh
Interesting.
rounder or priority FA. He's like another 5'9" running back who people are just saying like his tape is like hilarious to watch.
Well, Deuce's tape is hilarious to watch for sure.
I know it is. It's really good.
And no, that actually is encouraging to me that Keaton's higher up on that list than I thought he might be. He's basically just outside the top third of the very top 6 backs as in terms of receivers, which is good because honestly, it's kind of like the linebacker question. It's just the flip side of the other coin. What do you need to do to be a running back? You got to pass protect. We all know that. If you get your quarterback killed, you don't get to play. You need to create in the running game, but that's less important than creating in the passing game these days, even as a running back, because the running game gets basically replaced with the passing game in order to get the ball outside to the edges faster again, spacing, offense, all those things. And it's anybody that's way down on this list, and there's guys that are on the bottom of this list who you would recognize and be like, yeah, that checks out on tape. Like I almost never see them catch a ball. One of those guys, Mo Ibrahim from Minnesota, who we were at the Prime Bowl. I was like, I just want to see if he can catch because Minnesota never throws it to him. Like he just doesn't. And, his number is really low. The other guy who might surprise you is Dwayne McBride is the last guy on this list.
He caught like 9 balls?
Yeah,
maybe?
like ever.
So like
again, it's not saying he can't. We see that all the time. Athletes George Kittle didn't have a ton of catches. Obviously, George Kittle can catch. So it is interesting, but you want to see some production. You want to see some familiarity with that. And the guy on this list, and everybody is saying, since we're talking about it, that Jahmyr Gibbs, right? The comp for Gibbs is automatically Kamara. And
I hate it. I
hate
it so
it too.
much.
So we're just gonna.
It's not accurate.
Right. It's not right. It's not a good comp in many ways. Very, very good players, very different players, and that's why, as a comp, it doesn't work so well. I think the guy, if I have to put a Kamara label on somebody, and again, I'm not wild about comps, but if I'm tossing around a Kamara label in this draft, it's Kenny McIntosh.
Ooh, like poor man's, but
not that poor. Like
middle class man
of the run side. Well, think about Kamara coming out, right?
Yeah.
Not
I
Kamara,
loved Kamara coming out. So I don't know.
You loved him, but there was a lot of we're not sure, right? Because he was one place, he was another. His production, he split time, he's smaller. He looks better in the passing game than he does in the run game. He doesn't have this many carries. What about between the tackles? What about power? All that stuff. That was all sort of legit at the time Kamara got drafted. And then he comes in the league and goes, yeah, I am one of those guys that can do all that stuff. I didn't do it in college for one reason or another, but look, I'm here and I can do it all. And everybody goes, oh, he's amazing. Why didn't he get drafted sooner? Blah, blah, blah. In terms of the passing game side, which is what we're talking about right here, Kenny McIntosh is as good as Alvin Kamara was in college or better. On the running game side, I'll take the poor man's Kamara comp because
that's
I think
what like the contact balance, right? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
about.
I think he's a good runner. I do not think he is the runner of Kamara's level, but in terms of that balance, I would say he is, like we talked about, tackles being more advanced or linebackers being more advanced at a certain stage. Like McIntosh's receiving game right now is better than Kamara's was in college. And that's saying something because he was a good receiver in college. McIntosh is a strong asset in the receiving game. And NFL teams are going to love that more than you do, right? You're going to rate Kenny McIntosh. All of you out there, the Royal U, are going to rate Kenny McIntosh as like your 15th best running back and be really surprised when he's like the 5th or 6th running back taken. And it's going to be because he is a weapon in the passing game.
There was you brought up Dwayne McBride, so I have to say this. There was a Dwayne McBride comp posted on Twitter that I can't unsee now because I didn't really have one. I was trying to like figure it out. And somebody wrote Peyton Hillis.
Yeah, I saw you react to that.
Shit, it's so perfect. It's so perfect. But like obviously like that 1 year prime Peyton Hillis Madden cover year, like yeah, it's the same guy. It really is.
Yeah. And he's a guy, I put him in honorable mention on Gems just because I love watching him run. And then I sort of went back and flared out a little bit on that look, that research, and there's too many things that concern me. One, passing game is like a huge question mark. Not saying he can't do it, but like if I had him on a, one of my 30 visits as an NFL team, I don't think I would be like putting him on the board with pass pro and recognition. And then if I did field work, it would be all about, I'm going to put you in weird positions in drills versus bags, catching the ball. I would do some of those funky receiver drills where you have to turn around and catch it after the ball's in the air. Like I would do some difficult receiving drills to see what he had as an athlete. He might be great at it. Who knows? But they never use him that way in college. His production was extremely low and he fumbles.
Yeah,
his
I think
fumble rate is really high. It's like the highest in the class. So if you have the lowest receiving grade in the class and you have the highest fumble rate in the class, like, yeah, I know all your highlights of you carrying the ball are electric, but that's just not as important when you translate from the college game to the pro
game. Oh man. Okay. Let me see if NJ Snipes. Let's go with that. Sure. $10. Thank you, Snipes. As a Clemson alum, that was the oldest I've ever felt in my life, by the way. Get out my fucking spectacles.
I don't know, man.
Guys. Come on now.
Okay, I'm not gonna. Just go ahead.
As a Clemson alum, I'm blown away by how all over the place my guys have been mocked. I've seen Bresee mocked in the top 10 or in the second. Similar stories with Simpson and Murphy. What's going on? To me, especially when it comes to Clemson defenders, right? All of them were better under Brent Venables. All of them. And Murphy has legitimate top 15 buzz. I'd be more likely he goes top 15 than not top 15 because people around the league don't really give a shit about 2022. They're watching 2021. Yes, and Bresee, similar story. He was going through some really, really tough things in his personal life. Losing a sibling to cancer is like one of the worst things anybody will ever go through. And it couldn't not affect him, right? So I don't even care about Bresee's 2022 tape, to be perfectly honest. You grade him on 2020 and 2021. And Murphy, different circumstances, but I would also grade him more on 2021 than 2022. And same thing for Simpson, because Simpson was playing a different role. Like they had him significantly more snaps out at, they call it an apex position, right? Which is not the furthest outside defender, but the second defender from the outside, which in a lot of zone looks is lining up over a slot receiver, but you're not like head up playing it like a nickel would. You're a hook dropper from the apex, who also happens to be the read guy on RPOs, and you're the force player in the run, or sometimes you might have to get inside and fit the B gap. Because anyway, I don't have a whiteboard to draw this up right now, but like he played outside in space a lot more in 2021 than 2022, where they made him more of like a traditional inside linebacker, and he was fine. But like I see him more as an outside linebacker. If I was going to compare role, just because I was watching him recently, like all the stuff that EJ Speed did for Indy as their third linebacker, he played Sam in their base packages. I would want Simpson to do that. Except I think he could potentially be even better at it because he's a really, really good athlete. So if we're pacing it up and everything like that, and they're spreading us out, we could basically play a lot of the stuff that we play in nickel, but from base, because Simpson is so rangy and so quick and stuff like that. So like you could play some of the coverages that you normally would only in nickel. You could play it from base with him. So I see him as like an outside linebacker, and I think the NFL sees it the same way. And I think, again, Murphy, you look at his 2021 tape, it's way better in 2022. So Murphy's going to go top 15. Simpson's going to go somewhere at day 2. Bresee's going to go somewhere at day 2. Probably like late second, early third is my guess. Because he's not like super good against the run. Like he's more of a pass rusher than anything right now for me. But he's still going to go day 2. But I understand the frustration from Clemson fans because they don't really know. Everybody is all over the place with them. But if you're just watching the Venables stuff, it becomes more clear.
Yeah, and it's even from sort of preseason to now, there's been more variance in that. Like Bresee was very high. Can't KJ was super high, and then by the time we got into like mid-season rankings, he dropped way off because his production dropped way off, and other guys would push their way up the board. And then Simpson is always like athlete or linebacker. What do you want, right? Because he's not both. His tape doesn't say he's both. He's an incredible athlete, and when he hits, and that sounds a lot like Tremaine Edmonds, right? When he was, but Simpson is older. You would have hoped that he was a little bit farther along. He's not. Does he have ceiling left to get to? Oh, yeah, he absolutely does. Got to go to the right place. I think you're correct in saying that Sam role, which is less used, like not very many teams run a lot of Sam because they run 2 linebackers, not 3. So you really have to sort of work your way into that second linebacker spot to get a lot of play time in the NFL these days. So Simpson, people just aren't sure about. That creates a ton of variance. Some teams he's going to be very valuable. Some teams really are going to have him quite far down their board because they're like, he's not a top 2 linebacker for us. So that means he's a special teamer, which means he's a, bottom of the 4th on guy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to frustrate fans who've seen the flashes and potential who are Clemson fans. Brazil is starting. He's one of those guys that would have been better if the draft process was shorter and he got drafted earlier, because people are digging back in and going, well, he doesn't play the run that well. And I'm like, yeah, but a guy that gets interior pressure like that consistently is incredibly valuable in the passing NFL. So again,
that's why I still think he's going like late too, right? Because even if he's just a pass rusher, like
I don't know that it's late too. I think he might go earlier than that. The KJ thing too, like I think they could both go in round 2. And I know Clemson fans are going to be like, oh. And yeah, if you watch 2021, you'd say there's no way that either one of those guys probably goes in 2. But there's going to be balance there, and people are going to weigh that very differently. A lot of people are, what did they do most recently, including me? Like I will go back when somebody says, oh, it's completely different. Sam Howell is a great example, right? The offense changed. I still liked last year's tape, and he became a running threat, top level running threat in college football, which is amazing. But his throwing tape, if you want to translate it more to the NFL, was the year before and before all the weapons left. And it's very different. So I will go back in cases like that to a previous year. But a lot of times I'm like, where are they now? Like, what are they going to give me if I draft them right now? Sometimes that's a thing like Venables leaving, which is a huge factor in the Clemson defensive guys. But I'm not so sure that those guys. Yeah, I could see one of them being drafted in the first round. I could see both of them being drafted in the first round. I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't think they're either one of them, unless there's something with Brazil's medical stuff that drops him late in round 2. Oh, is it Little?
Yeah, he came up on the counter because he's
hi, Little. Good to see you, buddy.
I'll feed you in a second, bud. I'll feed you in a second.
Yeah. So very talented guys. Simpson's going to go later than you might want as a Clemson fan. Murphy and Brazil, it's, roll the dice and see which teams really like him up high. I'm a little lower on Murphy than you. I think he's going to go certainly second round for sure. I know there's a lot of buzz that he goes in the first, and he very well could.
I'd be very surprised if he got out of the top 20.
At this point, I would be too, just from what I'm hearing. There's just so much noise about him. Like,
it's one of those where it's like, you don't need to agree with it. You just need to acknowledge it. It's going to happen.
At some point. And it's when you're doing, and this is something for all of you to keep in mind, when you are consuming or creating mock draft, you need to have a very clear vision at the top of what the mock draft is. Is it predictive? Meaning this is what you think is going to happen. Meaning this is what I think teams are going to do. Or is it what I would do if I was a GM, right? Which is like the question we had with Clayton Tune earlier, right? If I was picking Clayton Tune, it would probably be a couple of rounds earlier than the rest of the NFL. If I'm doing a predictive draft, Clayton Tune's going in the 5th or later, because that's what I think is going to happen, not necessarily what I would do. So just put that up there at the top. Hey, this is what I think teams are going to do, or this is what I would do if I had all my choices for these draft picks, no matter whether it's for a team or whether it's for the entire NFL, because those are two very different things. And if you straddle the line, you end up with some really weird valuation and your draft kind of comes unhinged. Like it goes all over the place.
My cat sniffed the shot glass with absinthe in it, and now he's just rolling around on the counter.
Don't let him do it. It's like water for gremlins after midnight. Don't let him do it.
Juke for $10. Falcons again need a pass rusher in the draft. Who are some edges that fit the Saints D-line style? Falcons hired Saints D-line coach Nielsen as DC. There has never been a more Saints defensive lineman than Tyree Wilson, ever. Like, he is so Saints, it's hilarious, which means he's so Falcons in terms of, like, 6'5", 275, crazy long arms. Like, he's like, if Marcus Davenport pulled a Frieza and went to his final form, it would be Tyree Wilson. So if he gets there, he's a Falcon. He is an Atlanta Falcon, 100%, no doubt about it. Do not pass go. Do not click $200.
Yeah, I saw one today that now that this question comes up, I'm like, oh, that's why I was watching that guy today, which I wasn't watching him again. I was watching the offense playing against him, but he showed up a bunch of times. And I thought, oh, if you miss on Zach Harrison, that's the guy you go get. Because I really like Zach Harrison. I'm higher on Harrison than a lot of people. If you miss on Zach Harrison, you go get Mike Morris.
Oh. Ooh. You're onto something there.
You can't unsee it.
Oh.
That's going to be burned in the back of your brain now.
Okay.
Yeah. Speaking of
what round though?
Honestly, with all the edges, you might get him top 3 if you're Atlanta, because Atlanta's pick in 3 is up there. Or do they have a pick in 3? I see when I get into lower rounds, I can't remember because so many of the picks have been traded and they move around. I don't know what Atlanta's 3rd pick is. What is Atlanta's 3rd pick? Is it in the 3rd round? And what pick is it? Is it their pick? If it's their natural pick and it's up high, you might get Mike Morris in the top of the 3rd. And he is, I mean, you might get
one of those
in the top of the
6'5", again, 6'5",
and he makes some plays. Like there are plays he doesn't make too, but in that same, like Marcus Davenport, we like him big, we like him long, we like him pretty fast. Like it is a type. And now that we're asking this question and I watched him today, I was like,
yeah, God, this edge class is, it might be the deepest I've ever seen. The fact that like Mike Morris is a 6'5", 275-pound, very talented edge from a major conference who had good production. And like, we're like, oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah, he might go in the 3rd.
Yeah.
That part is legitimately bananas.
All right. We did.
And we haven't even talked about the guy that you got to see earlier when you went to USC, which is Thule. And Thule is my guy in terms of
Thule's
like flying way under the radar and had really good tape. And I think is a better athlete in pads than he tested. I was surprised his testing was sort of pedestrian because he doesn't look pedestrian on the field.
No, and I think what's interesting is Thule was listed at 290, but he never looked 290, and then he measured at 265. And we're like, all right, that's more like it. But no, Thule has inside-outside versatility.
Well, when he was at the combine, they were running him through like DE drills, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, not really. Like he moves way better than that. I want to answer Quentin's question because this is a great question and a great player and a guy that started near me up here in the Northwest. He was a Husky, ended up transferring. Why is everybody sleeping on Puka Nacua? Injuries. Flat, plain,
that's
simple.
Yes, that is the answer.
Injuries is the word, because if you look at Puka Nacua's tape, much like the guy earlier that said he watched Clayton Tune's tape and he thought he was a better, like Puka Nacua is a hell of a receiver. He was fun at Washington. He was even more fun when he got to BYU and he was a receiving threat for Jaren Hall. Like he is big, which surprises me. I don't know why. Some guys, I just look at him and I think, oh, and then you look at his size and you're like, damn, he's really good size. Great routes, good hands, physical, inside, outside, can go down the seam, big play receiver. He's great. Like he's really great. If you can keep him on the field, you will get a gem. Like I stand by that. Like he would have been one of my gems. Problem is he goes to the Senior Bowl. He lights it up the first day. Everybody goes, oh my God, I forgot about Puka Nacua. And then he gets hurt and goes home. And I was like, if there was ever a nutshell like experience for the Puka Nacua experience, you just got it, which is, oh my God, he's really good at the position. Wow, he's got great size. Good kid. You know, Where is he? He's not on the field today, coach. Oh, well, crap. Like, I want that guy on the field. I want that guy on the field desperately. If I could go buy him a bionic, whatever it is he needs to stay on the field, I would do it because he is so talented as a wide receiver.
At his pro day, which they just had, he ran 4.55, broad jump of 10.1, vertical of 33. Again, not going to blow you away as an athlete, but in terms of just weird ability to get open, he's one of the better ones in this class. Like, and you made the point earlier about how speed's overrated. Again, I have a similar argument to JSM. Like, if you're running him as an outside receiver and you say go pull away vertically, I don't think he's that guy. But in terms of everything like 20 yards and in of just get the fuck open, he can do that
all the time.
It's still a very valuable skill set. It's just get open. Get open, Puka. That's it. That's all we need you to do.
Yeah, 6'1", over 200, almost 32-inch arms, good hand size, 9.5. Like, and all of that stuff shows up on tape. There are guys in this draft that are big and fast who just don't show up on tape very often.
Oh,
Matt
Austin
Landers.
Collie, what a comp.
Huh?
Yeah. I see that
by
actually.
The way. But yes, in terms of the comp, like, yes,
yeah,
I would agree.
100%. Tuli's top of the second. Interested to see if Adebawari sneaks into the first. I don't think he does.
Ooh, that's spicy. I think you're wrong.
And I think, and it's not. It's a floor play versus ceiling play, right? I just think that there's so many good defensive linemen in this class.
I'm going to attempt to change your mind.
Go for it.
And I'm going to use time to do it.
Go for it.
Yeah. Tell me why while I do this, because it's going to take a second for me to pull it up.
So there are some things on tape that I really like to see. Like when they put him at 3 technique, I think he does a good job of using his length in terms of like, it's not setting a hard edge because he's not on the edge, but in terms of like, I'm getting knocked back on the guard, I'm holding the B gap, you're cutting back, dude. Like you're not hitting this front side. Like I do think that he kind of plays from this squatty body stance and then fires out, gets into people's chests. And I think he does have some good knockback and pop. I don't, even though he is very athletic, I don't necessarily think he's super developed as a pass rusher. He has like one move that I think he's really good at, but I don't necessarily see counters from him yet. Doesn't mean he can't get there, but I will say that on the snaps where it works, like on the snaps where he hits that arm over and he hits the club and he's doing the sides, like it looks real close to Aaron Donald because he's the Aaron Donald caliber athlete. The thing is, Donald also had 10 other ways to beat you that I don't necessarily think that Adebawari has yet. I think, again, the ceiling is exceptionally high, but I think that right now as a floor, we're looking at solid, but not dominant run defender and potentially streaky pass rusher with the athletic tools to develop into a lot more, which to me screams second round pick.
To me, when you're talking about his position, which I'm just going to put up there as pass rusher because, yeah, you're going to figure out how you're going to use him because, again, the size is in between. But I'm going to take you back a long ways, possibly farther back than you really remember. So we're going to see. What did you think of Tommy Harris?
I don't think was I grading back then? That was a while ago.
You weren't grading. I guarantee you weren't grading, but what
like in the NFL, I thought he was a good player. Yeah.
Good player?
Well, okay, great player, fine.
Before he got hurt, like
yeah.
Tommy Harris was eye-opening. Like he was like he was a flash. If he'd stayed healthy, again, just had that conversation about some other players.
What was the last year he played? Like 2011, maybe?
I don't even think it was that late because he was drafted 2004 out of Oklahoma.
Okay.
So it's a while back, and a lot of people watching probably maybe don't even know who Tommy Harris is, especially if they're not Bears fans. Because again, he had a shortened career by injury, but he was lightning in a bottle. He was amazing as a 3-tech, as an interior pass rusher. He was tremendous. So Adetomiwa massacres his numbers physically. Like from a physical potential standpoint, Like, he's the same size, 6'2" versus 6'1.5". The weight is 10, 12 pounds apart. Tommy was 295. Adetomiwa. It's funny because Adetomiwa's nickname is Tommy. I just thought of
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Anyways, so Tommy Harris, to be clear, 295. Ade was 282. Bench 29-27. 40-yard dash, and Tommy was lightning fast as a 3-tech. He was 4.78.
Mm-hmm.
Ade ran a 4.49.
No, he's a crazy athlete.
It's not even close. And you get into burst vertical, Tommy's was 31, 37.5. Broad, 9. Adetomiwa, 10. Shuttle, 4.31. Shuttle, 4.26. And again, it was that flash change of direction that this guy that was almost 300 pounds could get up, do a nice little shake move in front of the guard who went, what? And then absolutely blazed at the quarterback and annihilate him. Like, Tommy Harris was, from an athletic standpoint, amazing as a defensive tackle. And Adetomiwa just blows him away. Like, and we know that at this position, and I'm just going to say pass rusher, the NFL bets on potential more than almost any other position. They need like top level athletes, and they're willing to spend high picks on top level athletes. And he's that. I don't think he slips. Like, you get it, especially in those last 10 picks, and you're looking, and you're like, when are we going to get another guy like this? And the answer is
so. Before or after Keanu Benton?
Oh, way before.
Oh, I'm the opposite. I'm taking Benton all day.
I think Benton is a better player for sure in almost every way, but Benton is viewed as a traditional nose tackle, and we know those go later, right? You get outside.
I don't know. I'm not so sure. I think some people see him as either or.
I wouldn't put those two guys in the same category.
I would take a beer bet that Benton goes ahead.
Goes
ahead of him.
Of Ade. Okay. Yeah. Done. Like, I'll take that bet any day. And it's not because I don't like Benton. Let's be clear. Like, I have been a Keanu Benton stan since the first time I watched him and went, okay, this is my guy at 1, right? At 1-tech. Like, this is my 0/1 guy. And I really think 1, but still fine. Like, either, because he is more than people think he is. He is a load against the run, and then he flashes those pass rush skills, and that's what people are coming around to even now. But again, you get outside, and it's just that premium, right? We need pass rushers. We need sack artists. We need guys that can penetrate, and we need just the top level athletes to do it. Nobody will take a chance on somebody that doesn't have top athletic scores at that position, and he's got like historic scores at that position.
Yeah, no, he is an exceptional athlete, and I'll post some clips on Twitter tonight of a certain rep that honestly looks exactly like Aaron Donald. Like, it's fucking scary. Yep. But I think there's a lot of really good defensive linemen in this class. There's a ton of them.
Ton. And like, to be clear, I would take Keanu Benton if I needed that position in the end of the first round, because I think he is going to play to that level of investment. But I really bet you're going to be able to get Keanu Benton late second, early third. And it's not because he's a bad player, right?
I think that would be, I would have the same, if he fell to late second, I would have the same reaction. Oh God, who was the Notre Dame 5-tech that went to Pittsburgh, just retired last year? Oh man, I loved him so much. He was such a good player. Stephon Tuitt. I would have the same reaction as when Stephon Tuitt fell to the second, where I'm like, what the hell are all of you doing? That is a first round. And then Tuitt was amazing, right? I would have the same reaction for Connor. If let's say, because the Bills, I still think, need defensive tackle help. If the Bills don't take Keanu Benton in the late first, or Jack Campbell, I would accept either one of those. After seeing how a bad run defense ruined them in the back half of the year, I would immediately question every decision that they made this offseason.
Okay, here's the kicker. And I know we're over time, but we're having a good time, and that nobody's surprised by either of those things. I'm going to take an example from much more recent history, which you will remember last year.
Okay.
Who'd you think was one of the most badass defensive tackles in the entire class last year?
Oh God, I can't remember last year's class. Who?
I know it's hard because we do the brain flush. I'll give you a hint. UConn.
Oh, Senior
Travis
Bowl
Jones.
ass kicker. Yes.
Travis Jones.
Yes, loved him.
Travis Jones. Loved him, right?
Yeah, 3rd round. I know. Yeah.
3rd round, 76.
Yeah.
And you're saying Keanu Benton first. I'm like,
because
how
I think
much
that
better
I think
do
that
you
Travis
Keanu Benton is than Travis
Because-
freaking Jones. Like Travis Jones was my number 2 DT last year, and he had more pass rush. He was not
I don't
one-dimensional.
think so.
He had more pass rush than people thought he had. Right? I don't
but
think
I
he has
think
more
Benton
pass
could
rush than
legitimately
Benton.
be. I think Benton could legitimately be a full-time 3 technique with pass rush, and be a good pass rusher.
Okay.
Like I think Benton, honestly, I think people are saying, best case scenario DJ Reader. I'm more on the Casey Hayward side of the spectrum for that.
Well, honestly, if that's the neighborhood you're in, like DJ Reader,
It is.
Hayward, like,
Yeah,
who cares?
Yeah.
That's winning. It doesn't matter where you pick him. If you pick him in the first and you get that, you did great. If you pick him in the second and you did that, you did amazing. You pick him in the third, 76, and you get that, like that's theft on an all-time level. Like now, I think Benton probably goes late second, but I could see him easily going early third just because of people thinking about positional value. Now, as a player, I like him better than that. Is he going above Ade? You just probably should start picking out what kind of beer you want to buy me. That ain't happening unless there's like
you're
bong
sending
thing
me
or an
dead
injury
guy.
thing or a whatever.
You're sending me that dead guy ale. I'm sending you probably some Carl Strauss. I don't think you get Carl Strauss up there.
We don't get Carl Strauss up here, so maybe that's the thing. But it'll be a fun bet. Chat will remind us of all that when we get to the draft, as they always do. Yeah. So I don't know. This has been killer. We should do this again.
Yeah, and I know, like, statistically, it's actually impossible for us to answer every single super chat because we get so many. But because we want to respect the investment that you guys make into the channel, please DM us on Twitter. Hold on, let me throw it up here. There we go.
Yep.
These are our handles on Twitter. Please DM us. Please ask those questions there too. We can start a private discussion about it because we want your questions to be answered. Unfortunately, we just couldn't do it in this 2.5 hour stream.
This is a victim of our own success thing, which is awesome, and we love it. But yeah, we're growing. We've got almost 30,000 subscribers at this point. If you're following the channel, which we hope you are, if you're not, do that now. The last several videos we've put out have done extremely well, and it looks like it's going to continue that way on through draft season because everybody's super hungry for it and is really enjoying the content. So can't thank you all enough for any way you support the channel. It doesn't have to be super chats, liking, subscribing, putting a comment on a video, watching them, sending them to your friends, telling people to sign up, telling people on Twitter that, we've seen so many of you say the channel is underfollowed and it's the best content out there and I don't miss anything they do. And we see it all. We appreciate it all, even if we can't individually reach out and say, hey, that's the best. We try to.
Yeah. Cody specifically, again, I know there's a lot of people that feel exactly the same way you do. Unfortunately, we literally do not have time to answer every single question on stream. So again, I encourage you, please DM me right now. I will be able to answer you. And we could start a private chat. And honestly, you can ask me whatever questions you want. You don't even need to limit it to one. Ask me whatever questions you want on Twitter. I got you tonight, I promise. But again, appreciate everybody for coming out. I have a wife to go say hi to and some cats to feed. EJ, I know you have some kids to make sure that they eat dinner.
Yep,
and
there's that.
With that, we have another episode coming out next week, another pod episode, and then we'll have another stream a couple weeks from now. Hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend, and until next time, later.
Take care.